The god's wood of the Red Keep was a stranger's garden, a circle of stone and imported trees, prettied for courtiers who did not know the smell of snow. Eddard Stark sat on the low stone that edged the pool and watched the moon break its silver upon the black water. The wind in King's Landing came off the river and tasted of tar, of smoke, of fish. In the north, the wind tasted like iron and winter apples. He missed that. In the still water, he saw the curl of Lyanna's hair and the way her eyes used to search his face, a question not yet asked or answered. Boot soles whispered on damp leaves. Varys did not so much move as appear, drawing his hands together beneath brocade sleeves. The torch he held painted his soft face in wax and shadow. "My lord Hand," the eunuch murmured, "you bid me come secretly. That alone tells me you mean to leave the paths we have walked so far." "Sometimes a wrong path is walked because a man will not turn his feet," Ned said. He stood. The sword at his hip felt heavier tonight, as if it too had learned something about duty and what it could cost. The king lies dying from a boar he should never have faced, and in his bedchamber the queen sits like a falcon that has found the dove's cage unwatched. Varys glanced at the pool as if it might speak. "You found what Lord Aaron found. In a book first," Ned said. "Then in the queen's face when I told her I knew. She did not deny it. She thought it was mercy that I gave her the chance to flee. And she will use mercy as a blade." The eunuch sighed. "I have seen this play, my lord. We all have." The leaves shook faintly. Lord Renly came in like a breeze pushing through velvet, his cloak clasped with a golden rose. Beside him walked Ser Loras Tyrell, slim as a drawn rapier, his hair oiled and shining in the torchlight. The Knight of Flowers lowered his visor and took it off in one smooth motion, respectful enough to pass for deference and yet still a show. "You sent for me, Stark," Renly said, and the breath of impatience steamed in the chill. "I told you yesterday what must be done. It was daylight then. Could have been done with ease. By morning it will be twice as hard." Ned looked at him, at the clean lines of Renly's youth, at the arrogance that grew in easy sun. "I did not come to court to steal children from their bed." "They are not his children," Renly said sharply. "Every moment we delay is another moment in which the queen gathers knives we will not see. Roberts will names you protector. Have you that parchment?" "In my sleeve." Ned felt its crackle against his skin. He had written the words himself under the king's shaking breath and red wine breath, to be the protector of the realm until the rightful heir. He had changed that word, and Robert had not noticed. The wax and the royal signet had sealed the change. "Then act," Renly said. "What use is a sword that is always sheathed? Put the queen on a ship. Put the pretender on another. Or if you will not, at the very least, put them out the river gate under guard and bid them go west. Once they are road dust, there is no one in the Red Keep who can seat a boy on the Iron Throne before morning." Varys's face was placid as cooled custard, but his eyes were the little black beads of a bird. His grace might yet wake and speak. "He will not," Renly said. "He bleeds inside. Every cough is a tide going out. Take the keep, Stark, or you will be a footnote." Ned heard the river in the silence that followed. He had come from a land where the world obeyed slow laws. Spring did not fling itself overnight upon the barrows. It crept along the hedgerows, a green rumor. Justice came like that too, with letters and seals and words spoken under oaths. But the city was a place of suddenness. Swords came out of sleeves here. Truths overturned rooms. "My daughters," Ned said. The words were a stone in his throat. "Sansa dreams of marrying the boy she must not, and Arya dreams of dragons. Whichever one of us moves first, they will be the ones the city turns to bleed." "Get them to the docks tonight," Renly said at once. "The Lady of Lys puts off at dawn. Your girls will be across Blackwater by the time the bells of Baelor ring. I can see them escorted." "And the Queen?" Ned asked Varys. Varys put his head a little to one side. "Maegor's Holdfast is not a castle unless the drawbridge is down. Its postern is old and sticks in damp weather. The King's Gate is shut for the night, the river gate guarded by men who will do as they are paid. Lord Janos is a man of purse. Yano Slint, Renly snorted. A crow in a captain's cloak. Peter thinks he owns him. Peter thinks he owns everything he touches. Do not tell Peter what you mean to do, Stark. He likes to sell both sides of a quarrel and later claim the profits were inevitable. Then who? Ned asked. Ser Jacelyn Bywater, Varys said softly. A severe man, but severity is a kind of honesty. He commands 300 on the night watch. If you tell him you are protector, he will nail the doors you wish nailed and open those you name. He has no love for brothels Baelish and their long credit.
Ned nodded.
Loras, will you draw steel to keep the peace, if it comes to that? Tyrell's smile had all the edge of winter sun. My sword is swift for any lady. If you mean to protect the king's daughters, my lord, I'll be a wall. Renly laid a hand on his shoulder. I will bring my household guard, 50 men, quiet men. Bring none who need to prove themselves with noise, Ned said. Go now, before any eyes are on you. He turned to Varys. Find Bywater. Tell him to meet me in the Tower of the Hand with 200 at his back and the rest posted at the river gate and the steps to Maegor's. If he asks why, tell him because the realm is a lamp in wind. You make a poet of me? Varys tittered and drifted away like breath. Renly and Loras were shadows among the trees a heartbeat later. Ned remained a while sitting because he had to. He watched the pool until he could not tell the moon from the reflection of the moon. He thought of Jory Castle, of the black blood on the cobbles. He thought of the way Robert had gripped his hand, and the old warmth that had passed between them like a thing borrowed from a younger time. He thought, God help me, of Cersei Lannister as she had been when he told her that he knew. She had not wept. He could admire that in an enemy and fear it. He rose and went. The Red Keep at night was a ship at sea. It creaked, its ropes groaned, its sailors whispered. Lamps threw islands of buttery light in long corridors, and beyond those islands waited rooms like mouths. At his chamber door, Tomard sat on a stool with his cudgel. Lord, Fat Tom said, rising. Wake everyone, steel in hand. No banners, no noise, Ned murmured. Desmond, Varley, Harwin. Leave 2 at my daughter's doors and 1 with Septa Mordain. If anyone asks where we go to say a prayer for the king. He glanced down the hall. Has anyone called while I was gone? Only the wind, Tom muttered, and the hound like to a cloud moving at the end of the corridor. He stopped when he saw me look. Then he went. Good. Ned did not mean it, but neither did he have time to mean anything else. He went to Sansa first. She sat by her window with a candle guttering beside her. Hair brushed 100 times, eyes glassy with the salt of tears she had not allowed to fall. The city lay below her like a pile of embers. The sounds were softer at this hour. A cart will groan. A woman laughing too loud. The river's black cough. Father, she said, small, when he entered. I said my prayers. I prayed that the king would live, and that Joffrey would be kind. Ned knelt beside her chair and took her hand. It was cold and soft. I am sending you and your sister from the city tonight, he said. You will go with men I trust and a knight who will guard you as he would his own heart. This is not a punishment. It is a shield. Her head lifted with a quick jerk, a hawk catching a scent.
No.
Father, you can't. You promised. I promised you nothing I am able to keep, he said, which was the nearest thing to mercy he could manage. Sometimes a promise is a piece of ice that looks like glass. It breaks when you touch it. I am sorry, Sansa. She swayed toward him. For a moment he saw the girl who had once been a little child, running in Winterfell with a ribbon trailing, cheeks bitten by cold. Joff will be so angry. He'll say I am faithless. Joffrey will say whatever his mother teaches him to say. Ned kissed her hair. He thought of the sword he had placed against the lioness's throat with a few small words. Take only what you can carry without help.
No jewels.
Wear a plain cloak. You will go with Yoren of the Watch if I can find him, and with Loras Tyrell. You must trust me now. He went to Arya next and found her awake, barefoot on the bed with her practiced sword braced under her knees. as if she meant to camp there until enemies came through the window. "You said not to play with it inside," she said, guilty and fierce both. "You may play with it outside the city walls," he said. "You are leaving tonight." Her eyes shone. "Is this one of your stories?" When he did not smile, the shine gentled. "We are going home? We are going away." He lifted the thin sword. "What do you call this?" "Needle. Hold fast to it, then." He wrapped her in his arms and did not mind the blade between them. It was like hugging a winter branch and a summer one together. "Obey Loras. Obey Septa Mordain when she says to be quiet. Obey Yoren most of all. He is not gentle, but he is strong." She nodded into his chest. "Will you come after?" "Yes." He lied only enough not to frighten her. By the time Ned reached the Tower of the Hand again, the corridor outside his solar was full of men with pale faces, belts hand-tightened, males silent under leather, the sort of men who had left breakfast and supper and sleep behind to be the walls of a house. Ser Jacelyn Bywater waited among them, his beard iron gray, his eye patch a leather crescent. "My Lord Protector," Bywater said, as if tasting the words. "Varys tells me those are your letters, and the seal is the king's." "They are," Ned said. He drew the parchment and showed the broken wax, the smear of the stag's head. "From this hour until a lawful successor is named, the hand rules. We will make no blood this night if we can help it. Captain, I need the river gate held and the steps to Maegor's holdfast seized. The drawbridge must be raised and the queen confined." Bywater nodded. "I will move 50 men to the river gate, quiet men. I leave Tristan Moore there, a careful soul. 100 to Maegor's, another 100 on the doors of the queen's apartments. The last 50 with us." "Janos Slint?" Ned asked. "Sleep," Bywater said. "I suggested he carry a belly full of wine to his bed, and he agreed with enthusiasm." "Then may he dream of coin," Renly said behind them. He had returned with his 50 in green and gold livery, their helms brushed, their boots black. Loras at their van looked as bright as a confession. "Let us go," Ned said. They went like a prayer said quickly and in a low voice. Stairs curved down through the belly of the tower. A page carrying a candle flattened against the wall when they passed. A girl with a basket of bread ducked into a doorway and held the basket as if it might hide her. The Red Keep breathed around them, a great cat asleep with one lid cracked. At the base of the Tower of the Hand, the corridor turned into the broad spine that ran toward Maegor's holdfast. The holdfast rose within the Red Keep like a keep within a keep, squat and vicious, the drawbridge a single iron tongue licking toward the main castle. Lights burned on its battlements. On their side, the torches were fewer and had the look of lost things. Bywater went ahead with a file of cloaked men, their boots whispering. Loras moved opposite them, his sword drawn but held as if it were only an extension of his bare hand. Ned walked between Renly and Bywater, the letter warm against his ribs, the weight of ice like a promise at his side. Fat Tom and Harwin and Varley made a knot at his back, the four of them silent as a sentence. At the mouth of the bridge, a dozen gold cloaks turned at the whisper of leather. The sergeant at their head peered under his brow and then saw Bywater and straightened. "Sir," he said, and then, "My lord." When he made out Renly and finally, with uncertainty, "Lord Stark." "Lord Protector," Bywater said decisively, before any of the men could think too long. "By the king's hand and seal, he is in charge. Stand aside and be proud men for it." They parted. Their sergeant licked his lips like a boy who has not yet decided whether he has been offered a plum or a blow. The iron chains of the bridge creaked. The drawbridge was lowered. Beyond it, the doors to Maegor's stood like two black teeth. "Raise it," Renly said shortly. The chain captain at the winch glanced to a white shape that had emerged in the glow beyond the doors. Ser Boros Blunt in his fat white cloak came waddling out, his face a bust of candle wax. "What is this?" he demanded in a voice that tried for authority and landed on complaint. "Why is the bridge?" "Oh, Lord Stark." He made a clumsy bow that showed the dampness under his arms. "Was a message sent?" "The king lies dying," Ned said. By Robert's word, I hold the Red Keep. Boros's eyes were small and wet. He looked over his shoulder. Past him, another white cloak had come. Ser Marintrant, with his mouth like a purse string. A shadow loomed behind them and became Barristan Selmy, his hair silver under his helm, his face as etched as a coin everyone has touched. "The boy is sleeping," Barristan said, and in his voice Ned heard the crackle of old banners. "Her Grace sits vigil with her brother's son." He let the words hang, testing for echoes. "Barristan," Ned said, gentler than he had planned. "You know me. You have stood in other rooms with other kings, and you have made hard choices. This is another of them. I ask you for the keys to Maegor's and the Queen's apartments." Selmy's gaze held him. The old knight's hand tightened on the hilt of his sword and then loosened. "By law the hand is the king's voice," he said. "By vow we protect the royal blood. Law says nothing about bastards pretending at it." Renly cut in, impatient. "Stop wringing your hands, sir. This is why you wear a sword. Choose." Selmy did not so much as blink toward Renly. He examined Ned's face as if it were a map. "You will not harm the children?" he asked. "I won't," Ned said at once. "I will not have a drop of a child's blood on my hands this night." "Then what?" Barristan asked. "I will send them from the city," Ned said. "All of them, the Queen and her children and her household. I will send them with guards enough not to be harmed and witnesses enough to make sure I kept my word. They will go under fear of return until such time as a great council may decide their fate. That is lawful and it is merciful. The gods may judge me if I do less, and the realm will judge me if I do more." The silence held long enough for them to hear the clack and cough of the river gate in the distance, ships rocking as tide turned. Barristan closed his eyes for a heartbeat. When he opened them, he nodded once.
Ser Boros, Ser Merin.
"Open the doors." Boros blustered.
Ser.
"The Queen will. The Queen will read the law tomorrow and curse me in the morning," Barristan said. "And that will be her right. But tonight we will do another right." He fixed Boros with a look that remembered wars. "Open the doors." They opened. The drawbridge groaned and settled. Ned led them, though he wanted very much not to be the first to step on those planks. Inside, Maegor's holdfast smelled of hot wax and women's perfume and iron. Servants froze with jugs and baskets in their hands. A Myrish carpet lay like a captured forest along the corridor, wool soft under boot. Queen Cersei was in the solar, sitting straight-backed by a candelabrum that bent like a tree in wind. Lancel Lannister stood behind her chair in a green doublet, pale and young, his eyes too eager. Myrcella curled asleep on a couch with a doll under her arm, fair hair spilling. Tommen blinked up from a stool with sticky hands and confusion. A child turned out of a dream. Joffrey was not there. For a moment Ned's breath forgot itself. Then the hound stepped from a curtain with a hand on the boy's shoulder. Joff had one boot on, the other in his hand. His hair was the yellow of straw set alight, and his mouth had already learned the shape of rage. "Traitors," he said. "Joff," the Queen murmured without turning her head. "Let the men speak first." "Your Grace," Ned said, and bowed and did not mind if the bow was shallow. "By the King's will and seal, I hold this castle until a lawful successor may be named." "The lawful successor stands before you," Cersei said, rising. She held herself as if her bones were made of sword steel. "Your parchment is a thing you made while a man died. My son is Robert's son. Your North words cannot undo what is written in blood." "The blood is wrong," Ned said. "You know it. I know it. The gods know it. But I will not shout it through the city at midnight. Hear me now and hear how merciful I am able to be. You and yours will go from this city before dawn. You will ride west under guard, with as many wagons as a reasonable household and no more. The King's Guard may attend you if they swear to leave their swords peacebound until you reach the first Lannister holdfast on the Rosby Road. You will not return until summoned by a great council. If you refuse, I will declare you forsworn before the realm at dawn, and then the city will take your fate from us." Lancel made a sound, half laugh, half gasp. Cersei did not look at him. She looked at Ned as a she-wolf looks at a man who has come too near the den and yet left meat at the den mouth. Do you think to shame me into meekness? I am a lioness. Exile is a collar. It is mercy, Ned said. It is weakness, Joffrey hissed. I will have your head. The hound's hand tightened on the boy's shoulder. Mind your feet, pup, he growled. Cersei lifted one hand, and the room abated. She put her fingers to her lips, thoughtful, her eyes never leaving Ned. You have my answer, she said at last, very soft. If your mercy includes my children unharmed and my men not baited like boars along the road, then I will go. And when I return, I will remember that you chose exile over bloodshed. I will remember everything you chose. When you return, Ned said, it will be to speak to the realm, not to carve it. For you, she said, and smiled the way ice smiles. Orders are stones that roll downhill once they are let go. Bywater began the roll. The Kingsguard fetched cloaks and swore to peace-bond their swords. The hound swore nothing and yet wrapped his blade with leather without being asked. Cersei's women wept and ran, and her maids folded dresses with scrupulous care and then stuffed them anyway into chests that would be too heavy for any horse they had. Lancel looked ready to be brave and settled instead for busy. Joffrey put both boots on and finally found something to do. He shouted at servants and kicked a chest and said that this insult would be paid for by every Stark head in the city. Tommen asked if they were going to have a picnic. Myrcella spoke in her first wakeful moment to pet the doll and ask, Mama, pray rather that the realm not be haunted by the ghosts you have made, Ned said. She tilted her head. For a heartbeat he thought she would slap him. She did not. When a man chooses the law, he must learn how cruel it can be, she said and turned away. They moved the household in pieces through the keep like organ pipes being taken from a cathedral for repair. The drawbridge groaned up and down, to pass wagons and women and white cloaks and a boy whose anger made a little fire in the night air. The moon slipped toward the Blackwater, and with it his measure of time. Somewhere bells told the hour. Somewhere else a cock crowed too early. Before they left the holdfast, Sansa found them. She had come by a side passage Septa Mordain should have known to guard, her cloak too fine, her hair too neat. A boy ran after her with a cloak pin she had forgotten. She made straight for Cersei like a sapling bending toward light. Your Grace, she said, breathless and bright, and curtsied, and looked at Joffrey, and the look hurt Ned to see, it was so unguarded. I did not know. They told me only just now. Please, don't be angry. The Queen's expression did not change. She put a hand to Sansa's cheek and smoothed back hair that did not need smoothing. Sweet child, she said perfectly. No anger for you. The men do men's things. We must bear them. Learn that, and you will suffer less. Joffrey lifted his chin with a jerk. Father will send men to bring us back before we pass the river gate. He will have you whipped, girl, for not telling me. He will. He will die, Arya said from somewhere, and Sansa flinched and whirled. Arya stood with needle at her side and dirt on her knees, her hair like bad brushwork. Septa Mordain came behind her in a flutter. He will die and you will not be king. You never will. Arya, Ned said quietly, but the silence after made his whisper louder than a shout. The hound looked between the girls and laughed in that harsh bark that was not really laughter. Two little wolves, he said. The city will eat you and lick its lips. Not tonight, Loras said, stepping between the children and every eye. Back to your rooms, both of you. Let lords quarrel over your lives without you. Sansa's mouth trembled. She looked at Joffrey once more. Whatever she saw there made her smaller, and then she was gone, her cloak a swallow's back as she fled. Arya grinned at the hound for the insolence of it, then vanished too, as if the walls had opened a secret mouth for her. Get them to the river, Ned said to Varley, and Varley nodded and melted into the hall. When at last they led the Queen and her children through the main corridors, the keep itself seemed to hold its breath. Servants flattened themselves. A sleepy guardsman woke into a world he would tell poorly for the rest of his life. The huge doors of the Red Keep's belly swung ponderously aside, and the night came in like cold water. Torches flared and smoked. The city smelled of ash and onions and the old brine that lived in cobbles. They crossed the outer yards in a kind of pageant that had been written hurriedly and without a poet's sense. Bywater's men moved in ranked pairs. Renly's household went left, then right, then left again, a green ribbon. The King's Guard were white islands gathered around a tall, dark queen whose face had learned how to be stone. The Hound walked behind them with his sword bound in leather, and if he looked like a man who could unbind it with his teeth, no one said so aloud. At the river gate, the Blackwater sucked at its pilings. Barges knocked together with hollow talks. The men who kept the gate had the look of men who had been told they would not be paid enough for this. Still, when Bywater spoke, they did what they were told. The Queen's party was put aboard 3 barges, and sworn men in plain cloaks took the poles. The current tugged and then gave. As the barges slid toward the far landing, the Queen lifted a hand toward the dark shape of the Red Keep and made no other sign. Marcella leaned over the edge until a Kingsguard pulled her back by her sash. Tommen yawned and fouled his sleeve with jam he should not have had at midnight. Joffrey stood with his fists at his sides and stared at Ned as if by staring he could make the man's hair catch fire. "Remember this?" the boy shouted across water. "I will make you remember." Ned did not answer him. His breath clouded and then went thin as the barges bumped the far bank. A lantern rose and fell, rose and fell. The parties climbed. The Rosby Road waited beyond the gate on that side, the road that would run until Lannister banners swallowed them up. Bywater sent 20 across to ride escort. He posted men at the crossing so that none of the queens might creep back. When the last cloak had vanished into river mist, the night felt like a room that had been emptied of furniture. The silence came back to itself. "Now what?" Renly said. "Now the dawn," Ned said, "and the law in full light." They turned the keep into a place for mourning with the work of many hands. Renly's men held the gatehouse and the kill slits above the King's Gate and the river gate. Bywater set his men along the spine of the castle like vertebrae. Varys vanished and came back and vanished again, and each time a knot untied itself in some hidden passage. Pycelle was fetched and spluttered and fetched again. The Silent Sisters came to the king's bed, and the queen's perfume retreated from the solar like a foreign guest. The kitchens made a thin soup for waking men, and the smell of it was the smell of a winter town. Ned went to the king. Robert Baratheon breathed in ragged cloth. The boar had killed him already, only he had not had the grace to know. Ned stood with his hand on the bedpost and remembered Robert as he had been at the Trident, laughing as if he were the very axe he swung. There was something in that. Men were their weapons sometimes, and then they put them down and died even if their bodies did not. He drew the blanket over the king's barrel of a chest and then went to his desk. He opened the strongbox and took out the will. He took out his seal and the bag of blank parchments and the pins and the wax. He wrote 3 letters, to Stannis Baratheon on Dragonstone, to Ser Davos Seaworth by name if he could be reached by the same bird, and to the Lords Paramount of the 7 Kingdoms. The language was the river the law ran in, clear, edged, cold. He found himself writing to Catelyn as well. That letter he did not seal. He heard the scrape of parchment and the scratch of words and knew that this sound, more than the sound of sword on sword, was what would decide a kingdom. He had just sanded the letter to the Eyrie, some last honor for Lysa, some last attempt at mending, when Harwin came. "Lord," he said, "the small council." "Aye." Ned blew the sand and folded the letters and put them into the bag sewn inside his doublet. He slung ice on his back for this, not at his hip. The big sword lay along his spine like purpose itself. They met in the small council chamber when the light was only a gray stain against glass. Pycelle sat hunched like a collapsed tent, blinking as if he were a practiced blink more than a man. Littlefinger lounged with a leg crossed the indolent way of men who make coins breed. Varys had chosen a chair that let him see both door and window. Renly did not sit at all. He stood by the fire and warmed his hands as if they were dead birds. "Where is the queen?" Pycelle asked. His voice came in crumbs. "Gone." Ned said. Gone.
Petit Rebaliche smiled de languille surprise.
What a small word for such a large thing. By my order, Ned said. He set Robert's will on the table and pressed it flat with his palm. As protector of the realm, in accordance with the king's last will and with the consent of Ser Barristan Selmy and the city watch, I have sent the queen and her children from the city under guard, to remain beyond our walls until a great council may sit in judgment of their place. Littlefinger laughed softly, as if someone had told an indecent tale very cleverly. 7 hells, Stark. You do not lack for nerve. He tilted his head. But you lack for friends, I fear. Tywin will come. He would have come if I had done nothing, Ned said. At least now the Iron Throne is not a lion's chair. The Iron Throne, Renly said, sits empty, and there will be hands eager for it by noon. Why not take the step that remains? Declare for Stannis. Seat him before breakfast. Because breakfast is the last thing a man should salt with haste, Ned said. He put his hand to the parchment again. We will do what the law requires. I will call the lords in, and the High Septon to witness, and read the king's will before them. I will send summons to Dragonstone. I will keep the peace until Stannis comes. Stannis, Littlefinger drawled, is a man you might call law and salt and not be wrong. He will come with much law and little charm, and the city will hate him before he walks its streets. The city has liked its kings too much, Ned said. This time it can make do with a man who would sooner read than feast. Pycelle coughed. My lords, we should consider public sentiment. The queen is popular with the tradesmen, and the boy is gone, Renly snapped. Gone from sight, Varys murmured. But not forgotten in kitchens, where tongues wag. You have done a thing, and now you must keep the walls tight around it. The tongues will say you stole the queen. They will say worse. If you mean to keep the peace, my lord, you will need to feed the city a story. Feed it truth, Ned said. Truth, Littlefinger mused, is lean gruel. Why not stew? Say that the queen departed to be with her kin in grief at the king's illness, and that the hand, in his tenderness, sent a stout escort for her safety. The kindness of Lord Stark. The city might even swallow that. Then, in a few days, when the king... He flapped his fingers delicately. We announced that the realm must look to lawful succession and read the will. No need to call anyone a bastard in the street at breakfast. Ned considered. He did not like the taste of Baelish's suggestion in his mouth. Yet it was not a lie if one held it by the clean end. He had sent her away. Safety had been a reason. He nodded once. We will say as much. The ravens go in any case. Ravens can be shot down, Renly said, thinking aloud. It will take a day to get to Dragonstone, more perhaps if the wind is contrary. We should send a ship as well. Do it, Ned said, quietly, a fast one. Littlefinger had not dropped his mild smile. Janos Slint will not like waking to find himself out of his bed and out of his place. Janos Slint sleeps, Bywater's voice said from the door, and they turned to see him standing there, helm under arm. When he wakes, he will discover that he is to take his ease for a week while men with cleaner hands see to the watch. Ser Jacelyn will command the city watch until further order, Ned said. Let it be written. It will be written, Pycelle wheezed and fumbled for quills. Varys steepled his fingers. Harrenhal has been a nest of Lannister serpents for some months. They will wriggle when they learn this. And in the Riverlands already, Lord Tywin's men have begun to collect their rents. I will write to Riverrun, Ned said. My wife is there. She will know how to carry Tully men through their pride. Your wife took the imp, Littlefinger said. Tywin will pretend to take this as part of the same coin you've paid him in tonight. Ned turned his head and met Peter's gaze. He saw the hands that flicked coins, the lips that said easy, easy, always easy. I will hold you in custody, he said suddenly. You have bought the City Watch's captain and sold the City Watch's captain. I have no patience left for so many markets. Littlefinger widened his eyes, artless as a painting. You wound me. You will find the cells below the Tower of the Hand comfortable enough for a few days, Ned said.
Ser Hazelin.
Bywater stepped in. Littlefinger rose with grace, his hands already eloquent. If you cage every bird who sang for supper, Stark, you will have an empty city. I intend to have a quiet one, Ned said. Peter Baelish bowed lower than he needed to and turned. As the door closed behind him, Renly snorted his amusement. You cannot box that one up for long. He is a fly through any net. I only need him not to be buzzing in my ear this morning, Ned said. He looked at Pycelle. Send for the High Septon. Send for the lords who will not faint if they smell sweat. We will read the will at midday. And the bells, my lord? Varys murmured. Let them ring once for the king's body, Ned said, and his voice went low. And not again until the will is read. When the meeting broke, the keep had put on dawn like a cloak. The sky beyond the narrow windows was the color of cold milk, and the sea beyond that a stripe of lead. Ned stepped into the corridor and found Arya there again, barefoot, with needle's point resting very properly downward. Do I have to go now? She asked, impatient disguise for something tauter. Loras said I could stay until morning. It is morning. An hour then, he said. Eat something. I'm not hungry. He crouched and put his hands on her shoulders. If you faint on a dock, men will pick you up and carry you places you did not choose. Eat something. She wrinkled her nose. Fine. I'll find hot pie. He owes me a cake. He twisted a smile out of himself for that and watched her go. He looked for Sansa then and could not find her. Septa Mordane had set a maid to pack needlework and shoes and, God's help him, a book of songs. He told the Septa she could bring scripture instead, and Septa Mordane stiffened until her jaw could have cut cheese. The bells rang once. The sound went through the stone like an idea and kept going down into the city, into the river, into the houses with their broken shutters and their embroidered curtains. Ned went to stand in the hall of 1,000 lamps and did not think of how many of the lamps were unlit. Men arranged benches. The Iron Throne crouched and glittered and seemed almost to listen. Ser Barristan came to stand beside him. They did not look at one another at first. Finally Selmy said, I have been called many things, Lord Stark, never merciful. It was mercy, Ned said. It may ruin us, but it was mercy. The realm keeps poor accounts, Barristan said. Still, I have seen too much blood wash away oaths. I will stand to your left today.
Ned nodded.
I am glad of it. Renly's men posted by the doors. Bywater's men along the aisles. The lords who were in the city came, old men who smelled of medicine, young men who smelled of horse, men who did not want to be seen to come but wished to be seen to be what they were when they did. Varys appeared with the High Septon in a flutter of cloth, and the incense smell of him drove out for a moment the subtler smells of stone and wax and men. At midday, as the light at the high windows turned the color of a pale peach, Ned Stark broke the seal he had made and read the words he had written with Robert's breath still in the room. He read them without ornament. When he reached rightful heir, he felt the words settle in the space like a coin thrown into a jar already half full. When he finished, the silence was several kinds at once. Pycelle sniffed. Renly stared, eyes hard as emeralds. Varys made a little claws of his hands and tucked it away under his chin. Barristan did not move at all. Stannis, someone said, unhelpful as fog. Stannis? Renly echoed, not at all unhelpful. His mouth set. He should have been here. If he were a man for kings, he would already be in this hall, not cowering behind his island's walls. He writes, Varys said mildly, rather than rides. He will come. Meanwhile, Renly said, the city must be kept. The Tyrells will not starve if they send us bread. The Dornish will consider. The Lannisters. The Lannisters are on the Rosby Road, Ned said. For the first time in some months, we shall have a red keep without lions in its corners. For now, Renly said. For now, Ned agreed. He dismissed the hall with as much grace as he could spare. He issued orders for grain, for the watch to stand double guard, for messengers to be sent to the guilds to explain that the queen had gone with dignity to her kin and that the city's debts would be paid under the hand's own seal. He spoke with the master of ships about a caravel to Dragonstone. He found himself looking more than once at the door, not because he expected Cersei's painted face to glide through it, but because a man anticipates the return of the thing he has sent away, even when he is sure of himself. When the work thinned, he climbed the Tower of the Hand alone. The stairs seemed longer than they had the day before. In his solar, he poured a cup of watered wine and stood at the window. The city spread out beneath him, roofs like fish scales, smoke rising in threads. The Blackwater beyond lay open to the east like a blade, and beyond that the morning was already becoming afternoon. Harwin came at last with word that Arya and Sansa were at the docks. He brought a small pastry wrapped in a cloth because he had not found hot pie, and Arya had declared this a mercy upon the city. Ned bit the pastry and tasted cinnamon and thought he might be sick anyhow. He asked Harwin to go to the sept and pray, and Harwin said he knew the wrong words but would say them anyway if the gods liked men who tried. When evening came, the city put on its lamps one by one, and the red keep's own 1,000 flickered above them. Somewhere a woman sang too loudly and then not at all. Somewhere a man dropped a pail and cursed and laughed both together. Somewhere the hound looked up at the stars and spat and did not know why he had done either. Ned did not sleep. He sat at the window until the ink at the bottom of the sky ran black again. He had done what he could do without spilling blood. That did not mean blood would not come, but it would not come as a river spilling down the steps tonight. It would come in letters and fields and choices. Before the dawn, a raven beat its wings against his window and perched with all the sour dignity of its kind. He took another breath and reached for the tie on its leg. The raven's letter was short and trimmed like the sender's beard. Stannis wrote to say he had received Ned's first word and would receive any ship that bore a man with Stark's ring. He did not pledge much else. It was an answer the color of iron. Ned could live with iron. It bent slowly, and it held when it bent. Bywater came at dawn with a report that the Rosby Road was empty of any Lannister pursuit. The Queen's party had passed the first village without dispute. Astonished eyes had watched, that was all, and children had run after the white cloaks as if they were birds. "We posted 4 watchers outside each tavern," Bywater added. "If the Queen turns, we will know." "Thank you." Ned clapped his shoulder and felt how tight the man was wound. He wondered how long good men could be tightened before they snapped. A messenger from the docks reported that the girls were aboard a Pentoshi carrack that would tack north and then east and lie at Duskendale until word reached them to keep on. "Ser Loras saw them to the gangplank," the man said, hat twisting in his hands. "The little one tried to take a stray cat aboard. The sailor said no. The Septa said, the Septa was stern." "Of course she was," Ned said, and the relief that came with those petty domestic details was indecently sweet. He should not have needed a cat to make him breathe. He ate then because he remembered telling Arya to eat. The bread was coarse and a day old and tasted better than many feasts. He washed it with watered wine and then set about the letters for the day. To Riverrun again. To Stannis again. To the Vale once more with a sharper tone. He wrote to the north as well, to Winterfell, to tell Roderick Castle to ready men but not march, to tell Catelyn all he could without danger, to ask that Bran and Rickon be kept from climbing anything at all. He sealed each with wax and pressed his direwolf into the seal, and wondered if that too were something the city would resent. A wolf's mouth kissing the realm's business. By midday, the keep's air had changed. Fear had a smell. Keen and thin, like hot iron quenched. Men walked as if they thought the stones might decide to fall just to break their legs. Varys let it be known that he had already begun looking to ships that might move grain faster into the harbor. Littlefinger's absence was a missing pressure. Without him, the council's table felt oddly level, as if the floor had been set right under it. The sept rang an hour for the king. Robert had not worsened, and that was the worst of it. Pycelle spoke of leeches and stale wine and the prudence of prayer. Renly paced as if the king's bed were a jail for him too. Barristan took his watch and did not move from it. Cersei's perfume had been swallowed by the keep's draft. In its place was the honest stink of old stone and river damp and the faint sweetness of wax. In that afternoon's quiet came the first ripple. A minor lordling of the Westerlands, Lord Flement Brax's younger cousin, with 7 men and boldness borrowed from a distant lion. He presented himself at the king's gate in crimson and gold and shouted that he had come to escort his queen home. Bywater's men closed the portcullis between them and asked what queen he meant. The lordling puffed and proclaimed the name and bade them move aside. Bywater himself came to the gate then and told the man that the queen had taken her leave under the hand's protection and the hand's word, and that any who desired to pass must pass without blades and with only enough retinue to water their horses. The man attempted to bluster. A bluster can be killed by silence. The men on Bywater's wall looked down at him and did not answer. In time he found the sense the gods had issued him and went. Ned set the event aside in his mind, a pebble on the bank to mark how high the water had come in the first tide. The next day brought 2 more such pebbles. On the third, a stone, a Lannister banner on the far bank of the Blackwater at dawn. 50 mounted men under a cousin of Ser Kevin's. They did not cross. They watched. Bywater watched them watch. Renly called for a sortie to seize the banner. Ned called for patience. A banner taken is a quarrel begun, he said. They are here to pull us into a brawl we can be blamed for. Renly's mouth went thin. If you will not quarrel with lions, they will eat your sheep. They will try whether I quarrel or not, Ned said. But I have one fire at a time to tend, and the one inside these walls is mine. The quarrel with the city was subtler. Rumors are like cats in King's Landing. They gather where there is warmth and fish guts and prowl with their tails high. Ned heard that he had kidnapped the queen, that he had murdered her, that she had fled with a lover, that Stannis Baratheon had been seen riding up the Rosby Road alone, that Stannis Baratheon had been seen in a whorehouse, that Stannis Baratheon had died of a boredom he himself had sired. He heard that the king had risen and walked and cursed and slept. He heard that the king had laughed at the hand for being a northern fool, and he heard that the king had died already and the bells were being held mute by magic. He did not chase cats. He set meat where he wanted them to gather. He sent men to the guild halls to speak the words Littlefinger had shaped into something not wholly dishonest. The queen had gone to her kin in grief. The hand had sent guards for her dignity. The city would be paid. The bakers' guild was assured of grain, the butchers of blood not spilt in their alleys, the mummers of a festival when the gods permitted celebration. He gave them the shape of quiet and hoped they would like how it felt. At night he would walk the gods' wood when he could. The pond there did not have leaves enough to speak, but it kept a kind of listening. In it he said the names he could not write in letters. Lyanna, Jory, Benjen, the boys he had sent home who would never see home, the boys who would soon need to leave it. He said Cersei's name too, and did not hate her as much in the dark as he did by day. In the day he could count the ways she had used the softness of others' hearts as a hammer. In the night he could see the child she had been and the hunger she had learned. The world made lions and wolves. It did not much teach deer to fight, and so deer made their own weapons or were eaten. Gendry's name came to him once in the pond, unbidden, the armorer's apprentice with Baratheon black in his hair. There were so many children, and the realm wanted all of them to be smaller than the thing it had decided to be. It was on the 4th morning that a ship bearing a stag banner trimmed in black came up the Blackwater under a wind that had to be called favorable. Ned stood on the promenade in the lee of the King's Tower and watched the caravel make its measured way, a gull turning with it. His breath turned white for an instant in a draught from some leak in the keep, then vanished. "Stannis," Renly said at his shoulder, with a brightness that was not happiness. "Or men who answer him," Ned said. He did not smile. They had the ship moor under the Red Keep's shadow and set guard lines. A boat lowered and came across the chop with 6 men. For sailors, 1 knight, and a third who stood between them as if a thing set between stones so that it would not roll. He was dark, and his face had the look of a man who could make a whole truth out of a single small word. When he stepped into the light, one might have seen the fingers missing from his left hand if one were the sort to count fingers. "Ser Davos Seaworth," the man said, with a bow that must have been what he could manage now. "My lords." "Ser Davos," Ned said. He had written the name on purpose and not merely because Stannis liked him. He had written it because men who had been smuggler and knight both might know how to carry more than one kind of duty. You have letters for us. And from us, if you have a pen ready, Davos said. He took a pouch from his belt, and in it were 2 letters, one with Stannis's thin hand like tracks of a careful animal, one with a rougher script Ned did not place until he unfolded it and smelled tar and a little salt. The letter came from Salador San, and it spoke of ships as if they were lovers. The Lyseni would put his sails under Stark's problem if the purse were heavy. Stannis's letter spoke of points of law with loving attention. In closing, it contained a pledge to come as soon as all the ships at his command could be made ready, as soon as provisions were measured, as soon as his household was secure, as soon. So many as soons that a city might burn between any 2 of them. Ned read both twice and then folded them slow. He looked at Davos. What do you have, sire, when words have said their fill? Salt and smoke, Davos said. And the wind we pray for. My lord, Stannis means to come. He moves slow because he moves with care and with all he owns. He will not ask the city for bread it cannot spare. He will bring his own. He asks that you keep the keep and not let it stomp on itself. I will, Ned said. Renly? Davos added, turning with the ease of a man who had served more than one port. My lord, the king, your brother, would wish you to come as well. Renly's smile was a baring of teeth. The king, my brother, wishes many things. He should have wished to be here before me. Davos measured him and did not linger. He looked back to Ned. I will take answer by nightfall. We will anchor under your walls. You will be watched by them, not threatened, Ned said. We have enough enemies without making them out of friends. Davos inclined his head. The sea is a better friend than most men, he said, half to himself, and went. When the sailors' oars bit water and pulled the boat back, Renly exhaled sharp. Stannis will not be here for a fortnight. He moves like frost. Frost arrives every winter, Ned said. It is the summers that fail us. Renly laughed once. Quick. Your words are winter food, Stark. I will keep them by and chew them when the city howls. He looked down at the caravel, then away toward the city where smoke rose in lazy columns. I am going to High Garden. Now? Ned asked. Renly's eyes flashed green. The Tyrells love feasts and winners. I will fetch them before Stannis can scoff at them. If I stand at the gates with 50,000 and pretty banners, Stannis will be forced to stop counting his barley and count me. And you will ask them to back whom? Ned asked, though he knew. Whoever can wear the crown without splitting it, Renly said. Whoever can keep the city from tearing itself apart while your honest parchment gathers dust. You are a good man, Stark. The realm needs more than that. It needs not less, Ned said. Go then. Bring bread at least. Try not to bring fire. We will still be here when you return, God's willing and the queen gone. She is never gone, Renly said, with a lift of his brow. You sent her west. You did not send her out of the story. He clapped Ned's shoulder in a gesture that was almost affectionate and then left him staring at the water. Ned watched the caravel rock in the current. He could feel the shape of the next days like a map on his desk. Hold the keep. Keep the watch steady. Keep the city damped down. Keep letters sailing toward every coast the realm had. It was work made of repeating a word until it became the only one. At dusk, he learned that the queen had stopped at a minor Lannister holdfast to exchange drafts for coin and had tripled her escort. Bywater's watchers sent back cut pieces of ribbon with impressions of lion heads stamped on them as tokens. They would not write, but they would send what they could steal from a steward's desk. Ned put the impressions in his desk drawer with the letter Stannis had sent, with the little pastry wrapper Arya had left, with the pin Sansa had forgotten. The drawer felt like a box in which one kept a life. The city's nights began to turn sharper. An east wind came, tasting of salt and a storm too far off to name. Ned took to sleeping an hour at a time and walking the walls between. The Red Keep looked different from its top. It felt less like a web and more like a ship. It was less a house than a thing built to keep men at distances from one another, and to keep secrets inside itself where they could grow. He thought of Winterfell with its walls that held warmth, and he felt something that was not quite homesickness and not quite contempt. In the third night of that wind, A lantern flickered twice from the riverbank and died. Bywater's men answered from the wall, and the countersigns nested properly. An hour later, a single torch was seen moving down the Rosby Road. Another hour, there were 20 torches, then 50. When the dawn came, it brought the red smear of Lannister outriders at a respectful distance, and the knowledge that the West watched now in daylight and did not bother to feign politeness. Ned did not feel fear in the old way, a cold thing that made hands shake. He felt it like a clerk feels a deficit. Here is the number missing. Here is what must be moved to cover it. He moved men. He sent ravens with tight letters to lords who knew how to read insult in posture. He asked Davos to carry a second message to Dragonstone, and the second message had in it a request that Stannis move faster than he had ever moved in his life. He went to the king at noon with the Silent Sisters and did what there was to do. Robert opened his eyes once and said a word that might have been Ned and might have been beer. Ned took his hand and said, "I am here," and pretended the word had been the one he would rather hear. He spoke to the priests and made a face like a man made of granite when they spoke of rights. He asked that no one touch the king's signet until the will was done, and then untied the cord himself and put it on the table by the bed where it lay like a small captured animal. The small council met. Littlefinger was not there. Renly came with maps and then took them away again, packing for a journey he did not call flight. Pycelle had much to say about herbs. Varys had much to say about ships. Ned had nothing to say about any of it, and then said it anyway because a man must speak sentences to keep the ceiling up sometimes. When at last he stumbled back to his chambers, he found a letter waiting on his table with a seal in black wax. The hand that had written his name was a hand he knew too well for comfort. It was neat and careful and angry under its neatness. Cersei wrote that she hoped the road had taught him what it taught all men. That mercy is simply another name for a debt one will be forced to pay with interest. She wrote that Tommen had asked after the cats in the keep, and that Myrcella had slept on her mother's lap in the saddle. She wrote that Joffrey had learned a new game in which he gutted a fox with a stick and called it justice. She did not write anything that mattered. She had written to tell him she remembered how to write. He burned the letter over a candle and watched the wax run, black as crowfeather. Then he took the ashes and ground them between forefinger and thumb until they were only smears. He fell onto the bed without taking off his boots and dreamed that the weirwood in Winterfell had grown through the Red Keep and split it into neat pieces like a fruit, and that the river ran where the hall had been, and that boys with northern eyes fished there and found crowns at the bottom and threw them back for being poor fish. The first rain of that new order came at last, not the storm of lances but a small wetness from the east. It slicked the tiles and kept the dust down. It made the steps treacherous and the guards mindful. The city softened under it and then steamed. Ned stood under it and felt the weight on his hair and remembered how a northern rain could cut, and how men would laugh under it anyway, because laughing under a cutting rain is how men remember they are not only wet but alive. Beyond the walls, the Lannister torches burned, punctuating distance. Within, men waited with their work harder to do by not being in battle. Every hour he expected to hear that someone had slipped a knife into Robert's ribs under the bedclothes, or that a riot had flickered into life in Flea Bottom. Instead, there were small things. A baker who had charged double for loaves and was fined. A wharf boy who had fallen and broken an arm and been mended in the Mager's kitchens by a cook with herbs and a kindness. A drunk who had walked into the Kingsguard and apologized. It was as if the city, given a new kind of night, had decided tentatively to be quiet in it. On the 6th day, the bells rang again. Not for mourning, not for fire. They rang to announce that a great man had died in his sleep in the layer of hours where dawn and darkness give each other their cloaks. Robert Baratheon, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, King of Men, died with wine on his breath and boar's tusk in his side and a will lying under his hand. Ned stood by the bed and watched the sister light the last candle. He felt nothing that could be called grief and nothing that could be called relief. He felt the closing of a door whose room he had loved, and he felt his own hand on the latch. He turned and walked out, and the small council gathered like birds on a wire waiting for the wind to shove them. He read the will in the hall again. He spoke the words as if the king were there to hear them. He named himself protector again, not as triumph but as obligation. He named the calling of a great council. He named Stannis Baratheon the rightful heir. The words hung. Men leaned. The walls made a sound no man alive could hear. Then, because words are sometimes a kind of food, the city ate. It ate the news and swallowed it down into its gut and waited to see if it would be poisoned. The day passed with the sound of rain and the sense that things had been put in their places for the moment. Renly was gone by sunset with his cloaks and his stags and a promise to return with gardens. Davos's caravel slipped out on the outgoing tide with answers for Stannis. Bywater's men slept in shifts that were measured not by the stars but by the weight of their eyelids and the coolness of their mail when they put it on. In the night, Ned walked the Godswood and did not ask the South's trees to know him. He asked only that they not forget him. He thought of the Queen riding west with a veil and a steel heart and a growing storm behind her. He thought of Tywin Lannister pulling map pegs out of the places he had put them and putting them elsewhere. He thought of the Tyrells weighing bread and banners, of the Dornish warming themselves with patient anger, of the Vale closed up like a house in winter. He thought of the North, where men looked at the sky to tell what counsels would be needed, and of Winterfell with its hearths that knew him by footstep. He thought how thin a man becomes when he is stretched across so much. He did not think of the Iron Throne. When he passed the doorway where he could have looked in and seen it, he kept to the left, and the hall that led to his chambers smelled for a moment like snow. He stepped into the smell and for 3 breaths pretended he was walking up the steps from the yard where Bran had once climbed the walls like a squirrel. Then the smell went, and the Red Keep took him into itself again, the way the city takes anything into itself if it stays long enough. The next morning brought 3 ravens and a visitor who was not expected. Of the ravens, one was Stannis's hand again, who had found a new way to say soon and had wrapped it in bearing and complaint. One was from Catelyn at Riverrun, who told him that Hoster Tully's breath drew like a rope through a pulley, slower and harder. One was from the Eyrie and contained nothing he could call a word. Lisa, it seemed, had learned how to fold a page so tightly it might cut. The visitor came with 10 men through the King's Gate and announced himself with a voice that did not need a trumpet. "Lord Stark," he roared, and the words bounced from walls built to be spoken against. "Lord Stark, will you have an old friend for bread?" Ned turned from the table where he had been putting pins in a map and felt himself smiling without planning it. Lord Beric Dondarrion stood with rain on his shoulders and an air like a fire newly fed. He had come from the Trident with men who had used the roads in the long way that turns a journey into a song. He knelt and told Ned that he had brought what men he could to keep the peace as the hand had charged him before. He wanted new writs, he wanted new names to summon. He wanted a chance to make the law into a thing men could not pretend to mishear. Ned gave him the writs. He gave him names. He sent him out again with a promise of bread and a dozen more cloaks. Beric rode from the city as he had ridden from it before, a man who thought war might be a thing that could be taught good manners. Ned watched him go and felt the city shift a little in its seat. It shifted again at noon, when word reached him that the Lannister outriders had cut a messenger on the Rosby Road and left him in a ditch with his bag of letters still under his shirt, because the thing had not been personal, only practice. It shifted when Varys came with new whispers about a Sellsword company in the west with a lion on its payscript and a hunger for famous battle. It shifted when a boy from Flea Bottom stole a priest's bell and ran through the streets ringing it and shouting that the king was dead and the queen had eaten him. And he was caught and beaten and let go because a boy's lies are only a mirror. Ned moved, then the way a man moves when he knows he must but hates the place he must move through. He went to see Ser Janos Slynt in his recovery and told him he was removed permanently from command, with pension and the promise of a place in Rosby if he wished to be a lord of small petrified things. Slynt sputtered and spat and finally said he would make Rosby's abandoned wells sing gold if given enough time. Ned was polite and told him where to write. He went to the guilds again and made new assurances. He sent for the High Septon and spoke of the Great Council with the tone a hand might use when discussing harvests. He wrote to Old Town and asked for copies of certain laws that men would soon pretend to have known all along. When dusk came, he stood again above the river. The caravel from Dragonstone was a darker patch on darker water. The city's lamps threw their light onto the Blackwater in trembling ladders. He thought of Cersei Lannister again, and for the first time since she had gone, he felt afraid that he had not recognized the shape of the weapon he had left in the world with her. Exile was a soft word. He had made a hard woman walk through it. What would she be on the other side? "Father," Arya said, and he turned to find her there, as if the keep had learned to carry her where she wanted to be. "You said next time I could see the sword room." He looked at his hands and then at her and the Blackwater and the ship and the city, and all the things he had put in motion so that she might ask him an ordinary thing at dusk. "I did," he said. "Come then. But do not touch what you cannot lift." She grinned and trotted ahead of him down the corridor. It was a small grace to end a day with, but men have made kingdoms out of smaller. The dust made a slow snowfall in the light, each mote turning on its own purpose, heedless of men. The sound in the throne room was the sound of wool brushing stone, of men clearing throats, of a quill scratching a word that had waited too long to be written. Ned read the last line and did not lower the parchment at once. He let the words hang, as a bell is allowed to hum after the striking iron is drawn away. Stannis Baratheon. There. The room, for a heartbeat, could have been the empty heaths of the north for all the noise it made. Then motion. A shift of capes, a cough that meant argument sooner than illness, the scrape of a boot that wanted to be a stamp but did not dare be. By the door, Ser Jacelyn Bywater's men stood like things carved from the beams. Renly did not sit. Barristan did, but only because men must put weight somewhere, and his rested lightly, as if even the chair might find him too heavy. "The law has been spoken," Pycelle said, sounding like he might crumble into the dust motes if anyone breathed too hard. "The law, yes, yes. A parchment has been spoken," a reach lordling muttered, just loud enough that his neighbor could hear. The neighbor did not answer. It was not safe to be seen to hear too much. Varys's hands were doves that had been taught to pretend they were still. "It is a comfort to hear such clean words, my Lord Protector," he murmured. "Clean words may wipe a table, so that we can see what meal we will actually be served." Renly's mouth curved and then flattened again. "The meal," he said, "will be what we can chew. The city will not eat parchment, Stark. It will gnaw on banners. It will have bread," Ned said, "and peace to eat it in." He lowered the will and let it roll itself into a coil under his hand. He looked out over the hall and found not the lords first, but the scribes and servants and the raw-faced boys in borrowed livery along the walls. They were the room's truth, the city's breath, come here to be told what shape it must take today. "Hear me," he said. His voice carried the way winter's first warning does, small and clean and impossible not to feel. "By the king's hand and seal, I hold this keep until the realm may sit its great council and declare the line it will follow. By that same will, Stannis Baratheon has the blood right to that line. Until he comes, I will keep the peace. There will be no sack, no riot, no knife in an alley answered by 10 in a lane. We will be a city in mourning and in order. The baker will bake, the stable will muck, the guard will guard." He looked to Varys. "The ships will move grain, the sept will pray, the hall will deal in writs, not whispers. Men who wish to be kings have roads to ride before they can wear a crown here. While they ride, this hall, this keep, this city are mine to keep whole. That is all." It was not a speech that would be sung, and he wanted it precisely because of that. The lords shifted again, but this time the sound had the resignation of men who could not find a better foundation to climb. The common men along the walls seemed a shade less ready to bolt. In the back, where dust motes went to die in shadow, a boy who might one day tell his grandchildren that he had been in the hall the day the hand held the room together let his jaw unclench. The high septon huffed and adjusted rings that did not need adjusting. "The gods will bless a council called for lawful purpose," he pronounced, the weight of his office pulling the syllables into significance. "And they will bless restraint. They will bless bread." Someone from the guild benches said, "brighter," and there was a ripple that a generous man could call a laugh. Afterward, as the lords filed, Renly stood with his hands at the small of his back, moving the knuckles as if they were a puzzle he meant to solve. "You sounded like a steward," he said, not unkindly. The city will like a steward for a day. After that, it will want a show. Shows are for mummers, Ned said. I prefer mills. He inclined his head toward Barristan. I am grateful for your place at my left, sir. Selmy's eyes were coins that had been in use for so long that the image on them had grown pleasing by habit more than artistry. I will stand where the law stands, he said. My sword will be heavy when it must. Until then, I will keep it light. He looked at the empty chair that had been Littlefinger's place with no curiosity at all. There are some absences that the wise know better than to ask about. When the hall had emptied of those who wished to be seen to have been present, when only the workmen remained with their bundles of benches and the last clerk with his loop of sealing wax, Ned spoke to Varys in a voice that would not carry over stone. You will tell me when the city's patience frays. Before it frays, Varys promised. I am very fond of cloth, and you will tell me who puts knives into alleyways and then sells us the rumor. Those are often different men, the eunuch said mildly. But I will tell you what their mothers call them, if you like. Tell me what their captains call them, Ned said. Mothers are not the ones who can stop their pay. The river wind cut even through summer's thinness. It tasted of salt and tar and old iron, the way harbors do when they have been used by too many men who could not swim. Davos Seaworth bowed with that honest awkwardness of a man who knows a bow is not what his back was made for and offers it anyway. He smelled faintly of rope and onions. Ned liked him for that, and for the neatness with which he put Stannis's parchment into a scribe's dry hand, as if the words themselves might catch cold if the oilskin were not quickly removed. Stannis's script was wiry, impatient even on the page. The letter spoke of right as if it were a measurement one could notch on a staff and carry to market. It spoke of supply at length. It listed ships and crews and men who could be counted upon and men who could not. It contained very little about the city's feelings save a line as thin as a blade. Keep your peace. I will keep my course. In closing, Stannis wrote, I will not be liked. I will be here. The second letter stank pleasantly of Lys. Salador San wrote like a man sending a poem to a mistress he had never seen. He promised sailcloth and laughter and speed, and in between the ribaldry one could see the neatness of a mind that knew how often rope broke and how often men did. He asked a very heavy purse for a very honest reason. Prizes must be paid for with gold before they are paid for with fame. You will have your purse, Ned told Davos, and you will have docks if you bring ships, but you will have rules. Men who start fights will be put back on their boats. Men who steal will lose the hands they steal with. Men who cheat measures will not be allowed to sell a second time. This city has lived too long on games. Davos's mouth twitched. Salador calls gaming the spice of the sea, he said. But I don't eat much spice. I will carry your words back with the weight you intend. Carry more than words, Renly put in, green cloak snapping. Carry sense to your lord. Tell him gardens grow men faster than salt. Tell him if he lets me fetch him a harvest from High Garden, he will find the city fed and his crown heavier for it. Davos looked between them the way a man looks between two rocks that both promise to let him pass if he only chooses right. I serve Stannis, he said simply, and the realm if you make it possible to be both at once. He tucked the seals away and made his bow again. When he turned, the river's damp made his cloak cling to the back of his legs like a second, older skin. After he had gone, Renly watched the caravel rock and said, Your Iron Lord will come in his own time if I bring him the sun. If I do not, he will come in his own time anyway and light a fire to stand in for it. He will bring the law, Ned said. He will bring himself, Renly said, and smiled with half his face. The city will find out which of those tastes worse. On the Rosby Road, the dust rose dutifully and hung in a ribbon behind the Queen's column, a banner for the flies. The white cloaks rode with their leather stiff to keep from banging the wrapped scabbards against their knees. That, more than anything else, made them irritable. Men made to be sharp do not like the feeling of being blunted in public. Cersei rode as if she meant to wear the horse out of spite. The veil was not the heavy mourning a widow might affect. It was a narrow thing that did not hide her so much as focus her, a line of shadow that made her eyes bright as coin. The hound rode a horse that wanted to bite everything that came near it. He didn't bother to stop it. Joffrey had grown quiet in the wake of his shouting. He looked back often. Each time he did, Myrcella reached a thoughtful hand to tug at his sleeve as if to weight him toward the front again. Tommen sang to himself under his breath. A song without tune, the sort boys make when they are not allowed to sleep and must convince their bodies they are still winning. At the first holdfast, men in red and gold came out with chests and rolls of parchment. Stewards bowed. Cersei did not dismount. She took a cup of watered wine as if it were a ceremonial and sipped it like a sacrament, then handed it back with a small curl to her fingers that said she would remember that the wine had been warm. She signed drafts for coin and drafts for grain and drafts for animals and for 10 men here and 10 there, and all the while her eyes were measuring the horizon, not the quills. A rider came from the west at a hard gallop as the Queen's column started again. He reined up 2 horse lengths shy of the hound, the animal throwing foam like lace. "From Lord Tywin," he said, not bothering with titles. "He rides," he says, "hold fast the children. I will unbind what was bound." He says, "Send me words of the river and the city's breath every dusk." He says, "Remind my daughter she is a Lannister of Casterly Rock." Cersei's smile under the veil made the cloth look like it had been hung with hooks. "My father remembers what I do not forget. Tell him this. The wolves have taken a keep. They have not learned how to eat a kingdom. And tell him this as well. The boy is mine." She did not look at Joffrey when she said it. She looked toward the east, into the night, into the space between where she had been and where she meant to be. The rider went. Joffrey put his chin up. "The Stark will die," he said conversationally, as if predicting rain. The hound's grunt might have been a laugh or indigestion. "Many men will," he said, and watched the road, and the dust, and the long band of red sky being pulled down to the edge of the earth like a blanket. Rain in King's Landing was not northern rain. It did not cut so much as slick. It made men swear and made the alleys smell like old mouths. Bywater rode with his cloak thrown back from his sword arm and a calm that he wore like iron under cloth. He spoke to his sergeants and his sergeants spoke to pairs of men, and the pairs became fours when needed, and the fours bent around problems until those problems softened or broke. He left a baker a warning for doubling his price on the poor and left him a guard until morning in case anyone mistook justice for an invitation to revenge. In the Street of Silk, lights winked out early at his suggestion. In the Street of Flower, lights burned later, and the watchmen stood with their backs to the walls and their faces to the windows so that men could see their eyes and keep their courage. In a lane that had once belonged to Peter Baelish's quieters, 2 boys rolled dice before a door and hid the bones when they saw the gold cloaks. Too late but quick enough to show that some part of them still believed in magic. Bywater took the dice and the boys' names and said that when the council called for runners, he would remember that the gods had made their feet quick. He told a whore that if she kept a knife under her mattress, she should put it somewhere else tonight where a drunk would not find it and do something that would ruin 5 people instead of 1. On the heights, the Red Keep wore its lamps with the arrogance of a ship that has not yet met the reef meant for it. In the Godswood, Ned stood and let the rain be a kind of absolution. A stray cat came to drink from the pool and looked at him with blue eyes full of useless knowledge. "You were not made for me," he told it, and it ignored him, which was a kind of wisdom. He walked the corridors with his boots leaving dark prints he tried not to look back at. He checked the posts where Bywater had put men, and he checked the rooms where men had once been bought and found them cleaner for the absence. He went down to the cells and looked at Peter Baelish through the grill. Littlefinger sat as if he had chosen the bench for its view. "Do the mice bring you gossip?" Peter asked pleasantly. "Or do you bring it to them and hope they will nibble?" "I bring silence," Ned said. "Eat your fill." He turned to go. "You have made a thing out of law," Littlefinger said to his back. "It will not love you for it. Nothing loves a man for seeing it clearly." Ned did not answer. In the north, he would have cracked his knuckles and told a boy to get on with his mucking. In the south, you left men to their talk and kept your hands steady on your own work. He climbed until his legs ached and the walls sweated and the lamps made little disordered auras in the damp. He slept sitting up in his chair because the bed smelled too much of a man who had liked it too well. The sea made its own sermon. All breath and hush and the occasional slap like a hand on a table to make men listen again. Sansa stood with her cloak folded the way she'd seen proper ladies fold theirs in halls where someone watched. No one watched on the afterdeck but sailors whose eyes had been taught by years how to slide off passengers without insult. That made it worse, somehow. Her hands knew what to do in a room meant for watching. On a ship, they fussed and found only the rail to hold, and even the rail seemed rude for being tacky with salt. She had written a letter and not sent it. She had written it to Joffrey. The words bled with apologies and hopes and a description of the way the rain had looked on the river when the barge took his mother away. She had said, "Your Grace and my prince," and then crossed out "my." She had folded the paper and unfolded it and finally tucked it into the book the Septa had insisted she bring. The book was full of songs about knights. She thought if she opened it the words might fly away and leave her only a smell of dust. She did not open it. Arya had learned most of the ship in an hour, which ropes sang in which wind, where the cook hid a little sweet spice, which sailor would show her how to cross a knot and which would say no and then show her anyway and tell her never to tell. She stood with her toes gripping the wet plank, letting the water slap her feet clean. She wanted to walk to Dragonstone on the backs of waves. When the spray hit her, she closed her eyes and was in Winterfell for a heartbeat, where snow does the same trick with a different taste. "Hold the rail," Septa Mordain told her without looking up. The Septa's hands were folded on the closed book as if that was where they had always meant to be. "You will fall." "I won't," Arya said. "The ship would have to fall first." "The ship could," the Septa said, and then softer, "The world often does." Loras Tyrell had seen them to the gangplank and then stood at the end of the quay as the carrack took the tide. He had not waved. He had bowed like a knight at the end of a dance and watched, face smooth, while the boat became smaller. Yoren of the Night's Watch had said 3 curt things to the captain and then gone below, where he slept as if the sea owes him rest. The man's snore had a comforting honesty to it. Even Sansa had felt it from the deck, through the wood, through her shoes. It was like a house sound. At dusk, the captain came with a coil of rope over his shoulder and a fruit in his hand that he split with a knife and gave them in wedges. Sansa said thank you the way the queen had taught courtesies, and Arya said thank you the way a boy in the yard says it when he's been given the good green wood for an arrow shaft, and both answers pleased him. "Weather holds," he said. "If the river lets us go clean, we will have the cape behind us by noon. Then the wind will be our east and your prayers." He tapped the fruit with his knife. "Eat. The sea likes it better when you have something in your belly to keep your face from turning green." Arya bit. Sansa did too. The juice ran and made their fingers sticky together, and for a breath they remembered stealing cold apples from a barrel in the Winterfell cellars, and Elaine, who had once been a friend there, the daughter of a steward who had taught them the trick of it. Sansa swallowed and felt the ache come up the back of her throat unexpectedly. She looked east and tried to imagine Dragonstone, which she had never seen. She imagined a place of black stone and wind so strong it would tear the braids from her hair. She tried to imagine Stannis Baratheon and could not. She could imagine knights. She could imagine crowns. She could not imagine a man who wanted a crown and did not care if knights liked him. "Do you think Father will meet us there?" she asked, not looking at Arya when she did. Arya pressed her sticky fingers to the rail and left Prince there. "Yes," she said promptly, because it did not matter if it was true as long as it functioned like a roof, keeping the rain off. "And if he doesn't, I'll go back and fetch him." "You'll do no such thing," Septa Mordain said with weary certainty, and for a moment her voice was a quilt. Robert's chest rose and fell as if it did not wish to do either. The Silent Sisters moved like ideas, not women, parting the space with their little, sure tasks. Ned stood with his hand on the bedpost and watched the breath slow, watched the candle's small vigor fight on, watched the city pull itself awake under the window's square of glass. When the last breath went, he did not weep. He had done his grieving for Robert years ago in 100 moments of seeing the friend he loved bark laugh through a mouth that foamed wine. This was only the payment in full. He took the signet ring and laid it on the folded cloth where it belonged now, not on flesh. He told the sisters that the bells would ring once and then be still. He left the room and felt the keep stir as the news reached its corners, an inhalation more than a cry. The first sound that met him in the corridor was not a wail or a shout, but the steady tap of a woman's shoes running, and then not running, because the pace had to be decorous now. He read the will again at noon because the city needed to see that words were not made differently by night and day. He saw, as he spoke, how many men looked not at his mouth but at the space beside the iron throne where no one sat. Emptiness can be a provocation. He ended before the emptiness could become an argument and called for bread to be sent to the gates and hot broth to the barracks and more candles to the sept, because people must have things to do with their hands when a king dies and they are not kings. Renly came to him in the hands solar with the smell of leather and rain on him and a map half rolled under his arm. "I am going," he said without preface. "If I stay, I will make war with my tongue, and your city does not need that kind today. If I go, I can make war with my banners where war belongs." "Bring bread as well as banners," Ned said, "and bring them soon. Tell your Stannis to let me in the gate when I knock with a garden at my back," Renly said, and for a heartbeat a light played over his face that could almost be called humility. "Tell him if he slights me at the wall, I will build my own and make it higher." He put a hand on Ned's shoulder, squeezed once, and then was gone. Clatter of spurs, men rallying, green cloaks gathered up and packed into chests. Barristan came next. He stood without helm, white hair bright in the window's light. "When my oath is split," he said, "I hold the larger piece. The law is larger than the man who sits beneath it. I am yours while you are the law here. You are the realms," Ned said, "but I will be glad to borrow you." "You must be ready to kill," Selmy said, as if noting the day's weather. "I am ready," Ned said. "I pray it will be tomorrow, not today." He found that his hand had gone to the great pommel of ice and rested there as if the sword were a table and the hand a tired man. He took it away and folded letters instead. In the afternoon, Davos returned with a brief scrap. Sails being bent, men counting barrels, a wind that might serve. He added in his own rough hand under Stannis's neat line, "He will be here. He does not know how to be anywhere else when a thing like this is happening." Ned liked that. He liked it more than he liked much else that day. From the walls the land folded away in a patient brown. The road a pale scar that healed and did not, healed and did not. Lannister outriders kept a courtesy distance. They were there to be seen. That was their menace. They did not skulk. Ned appreciated that even as he refused to grant them the dignity of a response. Bywater had asked to send 50 light horse to make a point. Ned had said, "The point is made," and kept the men for the corners of the city that did not wear banners to show their mood. The rain came in off the bay in little sheets that tore on the bastions. Ned wiped his face with a wet sleeve and walked the length of the parapet, stopping here and there to say small things to tired men that meant, "We remember you are not the wall itself." They had contrived to brew something like tea in a brazier and were passing a cup. He took a swallow and thought it tasted like rope. He liked it. Below, a hawker cried that his apples were gold and would make a man's wife love him. A woman told him loudly that her husband had no teeth to bite apples with and that she loved him anyway, and a small ring of laughter rose, bounced, and broke. The city was not calm. It was behaving like a beast too sore to roll to its feet, snapping a little at flies, conserving its strength. That was something to love about it. When he had gone twice around, he stopped under the lee of a tower where a drip had taught itself not to reach. He watched a little boat nudge into the river's seam and let itself be taken. He thought of a man letting a horse choose its own way up a bad slope. He thought of Caitlin at Riverrun, of Hoster Tully's breath dragging itself through some narrow place. He thought of Robb with a map on his table and a boy's impatience in his fingers and Roderick Castle putting a flat hand over both as if to show him what calm weighs. He thought of Lisa's letter with no words. He thought of Bran and Rickon and the way boys grow into the shapes left for them like water fills a mold. He put the heel of his hand against the stone and felt how cold it had grown under the long wet. He pressed until the ache in his palm made him let go. Then he went inside and wrote to Old Town again about the forms for a great council, and to White Harbor about grain, and to the Fingers about a man who needed to be kept there until men with black cloaks could collect him. He sealed each with the dire wolf and did not wonder whether men would read into the animal what they wished. In the dark before dawn, he dreamed of Winterfell's gods would again. Root pushing through red clay, a slow heart. When he woke it was to a knock that made the door a drum. "Lord," Harwin called softly, "there is a rider from the west, a lordling. He bears colors and a message and has more arrogance than men." "Wake Varys," Ned said, swinging his legs to the floor. "And Bywater, send to Barristan. Bring him into the small council chamber when his horse is rubbed down and his clothes steamed, so he thinks he has been shown enough honor to talk honestly." He dressed with Harwin's help and drank bread soaked in broth because sleep had left a hunger behind. When they brought the Westerland's cousin of a cousin, too genteel to have a scar, too ill-taught to hide his contempt, Ned let him bow in the fashion of Lannisport and then set him to standing while he spoke. The message was merely the clearing of a throat. Lord Tywin rides with all proper indignation to retake a child's birthplace from thieves. Lord Tywin expects the city to admit the Queen to the seat she had adopted until proper order is restored. Lord Tywin expects the heads of certain men who had presumed beyond their station. Lord Tywin expects. Ned let the expectations pile until the man had exhausted them. Then he said, "Lord Tywin may expect what he pleases. Tell him the Queen has left the city with her household for the comfort of her kin while the realm sees to the law. Tell him she has done so under guard and with ceremony and has been shown every deference due her station. Tell him men here die for murder, not for manners. Tell him no head will be taken because a boy raised his voice. Tell him to bring bread if he means to speak to a city." The man opened his mouth. Bywater coughed softly. The man closed his mouth. He asked for wine. Ned had him given water. When he was gone, Varys said, "He will repeat the message only as accurately as he remembers himself afterward. But that will be enough. Lord Tywin will hear the posture even if the words crumble in the retelling. He will hear that there is a wall between him and his daughter," Barristan said, voice without triumph. "Men like Lord Tywin learn early to hate walls." "Then he has a thing in common with me," Ned said. Ned had never stood in the painted table chamber, but he could summon its spirit as if he had. A room made of hard lines and hard choices, a window that let in a wind that did not care for men but would carry their sails when asked properly, a candle too stingy to flatter anyone. He could see Stannis over it like a rock the tide never quite wore down. He could see Davos standing as if he could bring something softer into the room simply by placing his body between his lord and the world's edge. He could see map pins like little insults waiting to be turned into orders. In his mind, Stannis said, "I will not be late," to no one and then to everyone. "I will not be late." He shifted a pin near Dragonstone 1 thumb width and the future of 2 men's sons changed without fuss. He drew a line from Driftmark to the gullet, and men who had never yet met imagined the sound of their oars together and thought it might be a song. He told Salador San exactly how much coin he would receive and exactly how many ships he would bring, and San told him a number that was 3 more and 3 less, and both men pretended to believe the other's count for now. The wind at the window clawed the banner once, and then it hung quiet, which was a promise. Back in the Red Keep, Ned looked at the Blackwater and felt as if he could see that room, too, only half a day away by a bird that did not stop to drink. The city moved under him, eating, sleeping, praying, watching. It would do as cities do, accept what it was given if what it was given did not ask it to be hungry. He would keep feeding it. Bread, law, letters. The next part would be blood if any man grew proud too quickly. He kept a ledger in his head of the pride he could see and the blood it would cost to answer each. He balanced it with a stubbornness he had been born into like a surname. He meant to carry the thing through the winter of this moment into some spring. He set his seal to a last order, grain from the cellars of Littlefinger's brothels redistributed so that men did not starve because coin had been stacked in places meant for linen, and smiled once, briefly, at the thought of Peter's face when he learned his cupboards had kept the poor from rioting rather than feathering a prince's bed. Then he let the smile go and went to the window to listen to the weather. Rain, distant surf. Somewhere, the clink of a blacksmith striking decorously so as not to offend a day of mourning. Somewhere else, a woman laughing at something small. He held the city in his ears like a shell and heard the sea in it. When sleep came, it came like a debt collected. He dreamed of a boy with straw-yellow hair yelling across water, and of a woman with a veil whose eyes were coins, and of a sword as wide as a man's face lying quiet beside a wall. He dreamed of a table carved into a continent and of pins like frost. He dreamed of his daughters as they had been when all he had had to do to quiet the world was take a ribbon out of a tangle and hand it to the right hand. He woke with lines from his dreams still pressed on his mind like marks from a hard pillow. Harwin knocked again, more gently. "Lord," he said, "a raven from White Harbor, and one from Old Town, and a boy asking if you would like him to run a letter to the docks because his feet are faster than any bird's wings. Send the boy to the kitchens and feed him," Ned said, sitting up. "We will all run after breakfast." He reached for the Old Town letter first because law was how he liked to begin a day now. He broke a white seal and found neat, patient sentences, written by men who had sat under ceilings that did not leak, explaining in loving detail the precedence of councils and the way votes were counted and the order in which banners were hung so that men did not quarrel over who stood nearest to a throne that had no man in it. He smiled at that too. Distance had its luxuries. The White Harbor letter was from Wyman Manderley's maester, who wrote in a hand that had taught itself the trick of being friendly. It offered grain, it offered ships with bellies stout enough to carry lambs alive if need be, it offered counsel if asked. It said, in a way that did not say it, "We have money and would prefer to spend it on the realm rather than on wolves eating each other." He folded it and felt better for the weight. Bywater came with a small ledger of arrests, mostly thieves with bad luck and a would-be king who had tried to proclaim himself on a barrel in the Street of Flour and had been laughed down by women who had known real hunger. "He cried when they laughed," Bywater said half grimly. "We put him in a cell for the crying rather than the kingship." "Let him go," Ned said, "and give him bread if he will take it and not shout." A man whose kingship lives on a barrel should not be punished for knowing where he can stand. He wrote 2 more orders and sealed them and let the morning do what it always does, turn into the rest of the day without help. The gods would kept its tinny southern stillness, its imported calm. It would never be Winterfell's place, where the heart tree loomed like a witness who had forgiven nothing and yet let men speak. Here it was a garden that pretended to listen, and that was all right. Sometimes pretense was the most comfortable chair in a room. Ned stood with his hands open. There was nothing to hold. He let the rain bead and run and thought of the great council he would call and the men who would come. Tyrells with their herbs and courtesy, Hightowers with their ledgers, Redwines with wine, Martells with heat hidden under silk, Arryns with their doors shut, Lannisters with their swords not peace-bound and their mouths full of wrong words that sounded right. He thought of Stannis and Renly both at gates, one with ships, one with gardens, and what it would cost to make them set their burdens down at the same table and not try to put them on each other. He did not know how this would end. He knew only how it must not begin, in blood. He had managed that much. It felt like a plank laid across a chasm. Men could use it. They might yet. When he turned from the pool, the raven on the branch watched him go. It croaked once, a sound like the groan of a beam in winter, and shook water from its feathers with a neatness that made him smile involuntarily. He did not know whether it had brought him good news or bad. He would know in the morning. He went inside, and the keep closed its stone mouth around him. And even so he felt the air on his face then as something he might carry with him to a table full of men who preferred to breathe coin and smoke. He slept. He woke. He kept the city from tearing itself like cloth. He wrote. He sent men. He received men. He dismissed men. He watched the river. He listened for the sea. He listened for the footfall he wanted most and least. The one that meant a choice had come through the door wearing a face that would not be pleased by whatever answer it was given. He was ready, or as ready as a man gets when he knows readiness is a word for putting your boots on and hoping not to slide. And far down the Rosby Road, under a sky that had chosen steel for its color, a lion on a tall horse smiled without showing his teeth and touched spurs to the flanks. The road was a long one, but he had been born to long roads. He would arrive in his time. Men stood on walls above a river and waited to count the banners. The sea pushed at the harbor's mouth. The city breathed. The rain remembered that it had promised to go and kept its promise. The plank held. For now. The ship came in without flourish, as if it disliked being watched. The oars rose and hung, a forest at rest. A pennant tugged against its rope at the prow, Baratheon gold stag on black, and the wind made a hollow sound in the rigging that reminded Ned of gate chains in winter. He stood with Barristan and waited, and the waiting felt like standing before a judgment that would be fair but not kind. When Stannis Baratheon appeared at the rail, he was smaller than Ned remembered from brief walls and feast tables, but that was only because the ship made him part of its geometry. He had a face that had been honed against itself. He did not raise a hand. He measured the quay with his eyes as a mason might, and then descended, boot to wood, wood to stone, stone to duty. Lord Stark.
No wasted breath.
The words fit like a lock with one key. You have kept the city from eating itself. For now, Ned said. Your letters said you would come with law. My letters were a courtesy. The law is not, Stannis said. Behind him Davos held himself plain, the missing fingers on his left hand tucked easily under his right wrist. We will go inside and speak where the wind is less greedy. Varys drifted like smoke as they made their way through the gate tunnel and up into the keep. Pycelle huffed and wilted and revived in the shelter of stone like a plant that cannot decide between sun and shadow. Barristan kept 3 paces to Ned's left and said nothing. He did not have to. His silence was a pillar. Stannis took the chair to the right of the fire in the small council chamber and did not warm himself. He placed his hands on his knees square. The king is dead. The realm has no crowned head. Robert named you protector. His blood named me his heir at law. You have sent the queen away rather than strike her. You have held the castle. Good. We will now set to putting names on parchments so that men do not stab the air with rumors. The great council will be called. In the interim, I will act as king. There is no sense pretending that a chair without a man is anything but an invitation. Ned felt the old northern stubbornness rise like a hill under his feet. The chair invites thieves when a hasty hand takes it, he answered, mild on the surface, steel under. You have right of blood. The council will affirm it. But I will not see the city whipsawed by proclamations men can call self-serving. We will speak with the High Septon, we will summon the lords, we will order bread and ships and peace. When the council sits, you will be named. Not before. Stannis's jaw tightened. The sinew under his ear flickered. I am not a juggler, Stark, he said. I do not keep men entertained while barrels of grain are rolled past them. I am the thing the law points to when it uses the word king. You are, Ned agreed, and the law is a stone set in a stream. If you jump too quick to stand on it, you will be in the water. If you wait too long, you will be swept past. We will not wait long. I have ravens in the air and messengers on every road as far as Duskendale. Your ships are welcome at our docks. Your men will be fed at cost, not on credit. But you will leave the Iron Throne empty until the day the Septon names you the realm's choice. That is not an insult. It is a shield. Davos coughed into his fist, respectfully. Stannis did not look at him, but something in his tightness loosened by a hair. You will not pretend at kingship on my behalf, he said. Good. You are honest to a fault, Stark. The fault is not always useful. I have found it so, Ned said, and the words were as dry as bones. Barristan shifted and spoke. My lords, the men outside this room will eat the shape of whatever we decide. If we name bread, they will look for bread. If we name banners, they will look for blades. The queen rides with her brood and a tail of white cloaks. Lord Tywin rides with his host. Renly rides to gardens full of spears hidden under roses. If we can keep the city to bread and ships, we may keep blood from drowning it. Stannis's eyes, when they went to sell me, were not unkind, only measuring. You did not run, old man, when so many did. I had no place to run that would not reflect on my oath, Barristan said. And I have found that running only makes a man arrive worse. Stannis looked back to Ned. Very well. The throne remains empty in public. Behind doors, the city will be governed by men who remember their sums. Purses will be open to pay for rope and grain. If the master of coin is in his accustomed seat, throw him out of it. If there is a master of laws, make sure he knows what they say. If there is no master of ships, there is now. He looked at Davos without looking at him, and the corner of Davos's mouth twitched like a man who had been given a load he had always known was his to carry. Ser Davos Seaworth, Ned said, and meant it. King's ships will answer to your hand for now. The Goldcloaks answer to Ser Jacelyn Bywater. The city watch will remain as it is. The guilds will be told their chests are safe if they open them to buy bread instead of blades. The High Septon will be asked to bless the calling of the council at once. Ask, Stannis repeated, distaste and acceptance braided. Do it quickly. I will have the lists, houses, votes, precedents of grievances, precedents of claims. He glanced at Pycelle, who jolted and nodded and wheezed that Old Town had already replied. The parchments were on their way. A copy would be made. A careful copy. We will also have witnesses, Ned said, of the Queen's removal, of the will, of the city's condition. I will not have songs out of the West making this into a theft. Songs out of the West will be lies whether you give them truth to eat or not, Stannis said. But we will not make their work easier. He stood. He had been sitting for perhaps 10 breaths. That had been enough. I will have rooms in the King's Tower. Davos will have the docks. Your captain will have lists and the names of men who think their badge is a permission. Varys, stop looking like a cloud. Speak. Varys's smile could have been stitched onto silk. Only this, my lord. The city's breath is held. If we mean to keep it from screaming, we must not make any motion that might be mistaken for a knife. Announce bread first. Announce blessings. Announce the Great Council. Announce that the Queen has chosen to retire. Save for last any sentence containing the words bastard and usurper. Men do not digest those well. Stannis snorted softly. There is a reason I prefer letters. In ink, I do not have to taste what I write. He bowed an inch toward Ned, his nod as good as a sparred salute. You have done a thing I would not have done. We will see whether the realm thanks you or punishes you for it. I have learned not to take the realm's thanks to heart, Ned said, but I will take its quiet. Lord Tywin Lannister kept his counsel the way a man keeps a blade, out of sight and sharp. He rode the line of tents and watched men pretending not to watch him. Beneath the shadow of the Golden Tooth, the ground had learned to be cautious. Armies had taught it that. The smith's fires made small suns in the afternoon. A boy ran with a pail and stumbled and did not spill, and his face shone with a private pride. Cersei received him in a pavilion whose poles were as slender as the courtiers who would have stood within it if this were court. Her veil was not on her face. She let him see the angry beauty she carried like an unsheathed knife. You let him send you away, Tywin said. Not an accusation. A statement placed on a table for weighing. I let him choose mercy, Cersei said. An idiot law. He will choke on both. Tywin accepted the information as if it were a weather report. Wind from the east at this hour. And the boy learns, she said, which was both a lie and a hope. Joffrey stood outside the pavilion, kicking at a tent peg with methodical spite. The hound watched him without much interest, which was better than the interest he could have taken. Tommen slept in a cart. Myrcella combed a doll's hair until the doll would have screamed if it could. Tyrion is still in the Eyrie, Tywin said. Your sister by law locks more doors when she is afraid. It makes her feel like a queen. Your brother by blood will not be clever if the woman with the moon door decides that clever men fall as well as stupid ones. Kevin. Ser Kevin Lannister unrolled a map that smelled of lamp oil and old leather. Riverrun sits like a cat in a doorway, he said. We pinch it from both sides and the cat must move. The river lords will make their sad banners stand in front of halls that will burn easily. The city will look west and grow afraid and drink instead of thinking. The hand will count bread and bless boats and tell them to sing. And then, Circe asked, "He has my children, father. He has my—" She stopped herself, not because the end of that sentence was dangerous, but because naming it aloud would have given it more shape than she wished. "He has your absence," Tywin said. "It is enough. He will try to replace it with law. And men who think the world can be told what it is by words have already chosen the blade they will be cut with." His steed huffed and shook its head. He put a hand against the pale neck without looking, and the animal quieted. "I will not assault the city until I must. Assaults are for men who have been denied other methods. We will take their river first. We will make the council come to us to save their kitchens. We will turn the Tyrells into a coin that spends better in our hand than in Renly's. And when the time comes to sit in a room and speak softly, we will speak softly and make men agree." Cersei's smile might have bent a sword. "And if they do not, then you will regret your exile," Tywin said. "Because the road back will be shorter than the road out." He rode the lines again before dusk, counting with a mind that did not tire. He saw the hound speaking to Myrcella as if she were a dog he wanted to teach not to bite her own paw. He saw Joffrey insulting a master-at-arms and the man's face becoming the kind of angry that is best expressed later on a pell. He saw the roads like arteries, and he imagined his hand on them, squeezing, letting go, squeezing. He had not made the realm, but he knew how blood moved. Dragonstone smelled of salt and old fire. The courtyard was a bowl where the sea's breath collected and became a living thing. The stone dragons that ringed it had mouths that never quite finished their roar. Sansa tried not to show that she wanted to stand closer to the lantern Maester Cresson carried. Arya showed nothing at all, which was Arya's way of showing everything. "Welcome," Cresson said. His voice had been dipped in soot and honey both. "His lordship will see to your lodging. You will be safe here." Arya peered unabashed at the girl who had come to the edge of the lamplight with the curiosity of someone who does not much like to be looked at. Shireen Baratheon had a book clutched to her middle as if it were a shield. The scars that marked her cheek did not make her eyes less kind. "I have a cat," she said by way of introduction, then looked stricken as if she had said the wrong thing. "He is very good. He does not scratch when I tell him not to. Would you like to see him?" "Yes," Arya said at once, and that was the first easy word she had said since the ship had turned its bow toward the Black Island. Sansa inclined her head with care. "Thank you, Princess," she said. There was no need to call her Grace. "Not yet. Your father is very brave to come to the city when the Queen—" She stopped. She had almost said something clever, and cleverness felt sour in her mouth now. Shireen's smile was small and private, as if she had learned to hold good things close lest the wind take them. "Father says brave is when you do the thing you hate because it is the thing that must be done. He hates very much." Maester Cresson's lantern shifted and made the stone seem to breathe. "Come. The castle is strange to men born to trees and rivers. There is a fire in the smaller hall that does not smoke you from your seat. We will find you each a room where the window does not whine so loudly, and in the morning you may see the sea be another color than it is now." He tipped his head at Davos.
"Sir."
Davos scratched his beard as if it had answers trapped in it. "The princess asked me to fetch honey if the ships carried any. I will do it and ask no questions when more honey is called for later. Welcome, girls. If the wind bothers you, throw it a word and let it take that instead." They went inside, feet sounding small against so much stone. Sansa clasped her hands in front of her and told them where to go with more force than she had felt at the river, or in the king's hall, or on the ship when the sail boomed and cracked like a giant's shirt. Arya walked with the bare heel of one foot slapping just audibly against the floor under her skirt. A private rebellion permitted because the sea roared louder. Shireen led them to a cat that was not good by any measure. It regarded them like a steward counting coins and found them wanting. Arya loved it at once. Sansa sat where the maester bade her and took the cup he offered. The tea tasted of something that had grown between rocks and survived. Father will come? She asked, not to Cresson, who would tell her yes because she needed to hear it, but to the fire, which would not answer at all. He has already come where he needed to be, the old man said, and the riddle held kindness enough not to hurt. The anvil rang the honest note that a city needs to hear to keep from going mad. Gendry lifted and struck, the rhythm steady as a heart when a man is young and has not yet learned fear the way old men do. Sweat ran clean on his arms. Soot mapped his face with carelessness. The helm with the bull's head on it hung as if it watched him work, as if it had made him. Varys stood in the door with his hands folded. His smile could have been for a child who had successfully tied his shoes. "My Lord Hand," he murmured when Ned came behind him, Bywater's man 2 steps back. "Here is a boy who works very hard." Gendry looked up and saw men with clean cloaks. He laid his hammer down so promptly the sound it made was a quiet apology. Tobo Mott came out from behind a curtain of chains with a flurry of words that pretended surprise and betrayed calculation. He bowed for the right amount of time. Afterwards, he stood straight with a craftsman's dignity. He did not need to be told why the hand had come. He had already guessed, and guesses made in hot rooms often burn the fingers even when they are right. "We will not take the boy from his trade," Ned said, forestalling the wheedle that was already forming. "We will send him to a safer place to practice it. He will be paid, and you for the loss of him. Speak to the master of coin." He stopped and let himself smile without warmth. "Speak to me. I will see to it. Get him his tools. He will go on the tide to Dragonstone." Gendry had followed none of that save 2 words. "Why?" He looked straight at Ned when he asked it. The frankness might have been insolence if it had had even a grain of polish to it. It did not. It was a boy's blade, straight and unadorned. "Because your work is worth saving," Ned said, "and because some men break what is good so that their fear does not have to feel alone." He did not name Robert. He did not name Cersei. He did not name the quiet way bastards sat in certain mouths like a seed you plan to plant later in someone else's grave. Gendry nodded once. He lifted his hammer again as if to put it away, then set it very carefully on the block beside the anvil. "I can pack my own tools," he said, "and I'll carry them myself." "You will," Ned agreed. He turned. "There are others," he told Varys, and the eunuch's eyes said yes without his lips troubling themselves. "Some have already been gathered," Varys said. "A girl whose hair is black as ink and who sells clams by the river. A boy who sings off-key but with enthusiasm. A babe whose mother will not live another winter and would like to know the babe will see one. Your ships will find room." "They will," Ned said. He did not need to imagine Cersei along the Rosby Road thinking of how she would have done this part differently. He knew. He was already doing it differently. He would not sharpen his blade by cutting a child's throat. He would sharpen it by making the work of such knives impossible. Calling a great council was less grand than men thought and more arduous than they ever sang about. It was lists and seals and pendant strings knotted properly, so that no man could say his invitation had been dishonored by a sloppy loop. It was precedents and precedents of precedents and arguments about which man spoke first when the matter was not a matter of whose name had the most syllables but of whose house had bled in which war and on which side and what that blood meant now. The High Septon blessed a parchment with a prayer that had not been written for this purpose but served, as old prayers do when men are determined to use them. Old Town's copies arrived, vellum pale as the belly of a fish, and the words on them moved as slowly as a barge under too many sacks. "Bread," Ned said every time a clerk came to ask what should be carried where. "Take half the baskets you think you should to Flea Bottom, and then take 2 more. Give a crust with every summons. Men read better when their teeth are busy." He stood with Stannis at the edge of the Seps Cool and listened to the murmur of men who had made law their feast. Stannis looked as if he would rather be at sea. Ned would rather be in a yard snow shoveling. Both of them would do the thing that needed doing instead. "What of Lisa Arryn?" Stannis asked, as if Ned had left her off a list for sport. "She will not come unless the council is held in her lap," Ned said. "She will send letters that say she would have come if only men had not made the path an insult." I have written to her to say that a proxy will serve if she means it. She will not choose one. And the north. Stannis's eyes weighed that as a man weighs a beam before he lays it. The north will come if I tell it to, Ned said. I have not told it to yet. Robb is a boy, and boys make war quickly when men tell them to put on their swords like shoes. We will not make the road shorter for him without need. Stannis accepted that with a curt nod. Renly will arrive with Tyrells. He will bring banners, not arguments. He will try to count those as votes. They are votes, Ned said, of a kind. But men can carry banners under a council roof without setting them on fire. Stannis's mouth twitched, which might have been almost a smile in a man with less practice at holding himself steady. I have no affection for roses on my table, he said, but I have eaten worse herbs. Highgarden made men forget that wheat is work before it is a luxury. The air smelled of rosemary crushed underfoot and of water that had been coaxed into singing. Renly stood before Mace Tyrell with a smile that had been measured for this room. With his hands open to show, he meant no harm and could do plenty. Mace listened as men listen when they already believe they have been flattered properly. The realm will choose, Renly said. We will help it choose what does not starve it or shame it. The north has its wolves. The west has its gold and its anger. The east has its ships. The reach has bread. If we place bread on the table first, no man will flip the table. Olenna's mouth pressed very briefly into a bloom that suggested amusement abridged. Bread first, she repeated. Then what? A husband crowned out of gratitude? A garden planted in the throne room? Renly bowed to her, not too low. He had learned the measure of that courtesy and wore it better than he wore steel. A king named by law, he said. A city that remembers to breathe. A great council that does not become a great brawl. Later, perhaps, a queen who does not find herself a widow before she knows the shape of the crown. Mace puffed. Loras leaned on the back of his chair and did not speak, which was as loud as a shout in a room that expected him always to be the most graceful sound in it. The roses on the tapestries pressed forward as if to hear. Olenna tapped the head of her cane once. We will bring bread. We will bring banners, she said. We will bring a boy who looks well in a cloak and another who knows how to hold it so it does not trail in the mud. Bring men who can stand in a hall without turning it into a tilt yard, Renly added, unafraid to spoil his request with a command. And bring someone who knows the price of onions. The city has been told it will be fed. It will take insult badly if the bread comes stale. Olenna's eyes flashed. I am old, not inattentive, she said. We will come on the river. Men see boats before they see arguments. It is harder to set fire to boats inside a hall. She glanced at Loras. Go to the stables. Choose 20 horses that will not embarrass themselves on cobbles. And find your mother the dress that makes fools of the ones who called her provincial. Loras's smile bared teeth. Yes, grandmother. He shot Renly a glance as he turned, something warm and reckless and proprietary in it, and Renly caught it with a small tilt of his head as if pocketing a coin. The Riverlands were already learning their old lesson. What can burn, will. Beric Dondarrion sat a horse with the ease of a man who had never been taught the trick. He simply liked the animal and it liked him. His men were a ribbon, not a wall. Down below, the mountain's men were a stain moving through fields that had been poor even when they were left alone. Leave the big ones to break themselves, Beric told the captain at his elbow. We are here to take the small teeth out of their mouths and leave them gnawing at air. Pull their scouts. Burn their bridges when they are across them. Take their foragers' sacks and leave them nettles. He had been told to keep the peace. This was what it looked like when peace had to raise its hand. They moved in the dusk, when a man can be forgiven for mistaking field for road. The lightning banner dipped and rose. It had been made by a woman who had not believed it would need to do more than hang from a hall. Proved stout in wind. Beric could hear the prayers of common men like gnats around him. Mumbled, earnest, uninterested in theology. He added none of his own aloud. He offered the god of his mother a bargain instead. If you will carry the names of the men I keep alive tonight, I will not ask you to remember mine. On the second night, they took a knot of riders unawares and found under the leather a map that pointed not at Riverrun but at a dozen little places where the river's people hid their barley when taxes broke them. Beric set the map on the saddle before him and drew his knife. He cut the parchment into as many pieces as there were secret crofts marked, and he held his hand open. The wind took the pieces and the secrets with them and made new secrets somewhere else. The man whose breast had held the map looked at him as if confused. "You could have kept it," he said. "I am not much of a reader," Beric said, "but I am very fond of making sure men I haven't met have a next winter." He handed the man to his sergeant and kept moving. The nights grew habit and then labor. Ned slept an hour at a time and woke with the taste of quill still in his mouth. He learned to love the tiny sounds that meant a city lived. Rats that had learned to fear cats again, the creak of rope that did not mean a man was tying his sheet to a beam to hang himself, a cough, a laugh, a curse that ended in a chuckle because the thing a man had stubbed his toe against had not broken it. He walked where Bywater's men walked and sometimes where they did not. He went to the cell where Peter Baelish lay on his side like a man in a lover's bed and looked in until Peter opened one eye. "Do you count my breaths as coin, Stark?" Littlefinger asked lazily. "Will you charge me interest when you let me out?" "I will charge you quiet," Ned said, "and a signed statement of the bribes you have paid and taken in the last 2 years, and a list of men who will say you paid them. You may even live long enough to be allowed to deny it all under oath at the council." Littlefinger's smile was a cat's. "I always meant to publish my accounts. The city loves a good laugh." He sat up. "You have made a wife of law. She will not warm your bed. She will keep my house," Ned said. "That will do." He turned away because he had other men to see, other little fires to make sure were watched until morning. On his list he crossed out a name, Janos Slint, and wrote in another Tristan Moore as captain of the River Gate night detail. He added a note to feed the men before the rain began again, because a man on a wet wall is a man who thinks of going home. He told Varys to find men who could count grain without stealing it and told Stannis that he would have to make do with men who needed to be taught how to do what Stannis had always known. Stannis accepted this as one accepts the fact that the left hand is clumsier. When dawn bled into the narrow windows, he went to the Godswood. The pond reflected nothing but a too-close heaven. He knelt because standing had failed to make his thoughts line up and kneeling sometimes did. He did not pray in words. He gave the gods a ledger instead, an accounting of mercies and failures and the names of children sent one way instead of another. He told the gods he would eat whatever the day brought if they could see fit not to add a riot to breakfast. Then he went to breakfast and ate what was put before him and did not complain about the pepper. Dragonstone's library had learned humility under the weight of stone above it. It did not pretend to be the citadel, and that made it more generous. Maester Cresson found books that would not harm Sansa and put them before her. A Life of Septons, a history of the river crossings of the Trident told by a man obsessed with stones. She read not to be wiser, but because reading made the room steadier. She turned pages carefully and did not drop her eyes into the space between lines, where thoughts could swim and drown her. Arya stood in the window with her nose touching the glass until her breath made an oval. She drew a dire wolf in the fog with a finger and then wiped it away because that was a private thing. She watched the gulls behave like men, quarreling, stealing, landing where another had just lifted by the trick of being more stubborn. Shireen sat cross-legged and showed her a game with stones that made no sense until it made all the sense in the world. You leapt because the other stone had not expected you to, and because leaving your stone where it had been was an admission that you were afraid of making a mistake. "Princess?" Sansa asked, setting aside the book and seeing that her hands had steadied enough to lift a cup. "Do you think your father will be king?" Shireen did not answer quickly. She moved a pebble, frowned, moved it back. "He is father," she said at last. "That is a bigger thing in my head than king. King is a word for other people." Arya snorted softly. "Father will not need a word," she said. "He will just do the thing, and then the word will have to do what it's told." Creston's eyes softened. "A rare man," he said, "but they exist. I have known two. It is a largeness of a small kind, remembering to be kind in a room that has forgotten." The day for the council's call drew near without being the day itself. That is a kind of torture some men cannot bear. In King's Landing it became an art. The great September filled with the quiet clatter of furniture submitted to order. Men tested the sound of their steps in the aisles and listened for treachery in the echo. Scribes sharpened quills with the concentration of surgeons. The High Septon rehearsed his blessing by humming under his breath. He did not know he was doing it. The sound was like a hive contented with its own business. Ned set a seal to the last summons to a house that would likely ignore it. He did not mind. He had done the thing as it should be done. Men who refused to come would have to explain themselves later, in smaller rooms. He gave the parchment to a messenger with nice calves and told him to go quickly, but not so quickly that he knocked old women from steps. He sent bread with him. He sent a second boy after him, with a second loaf and a second set of orders, because redundancy pleases the gods of small labors. Stannis came to stand at the window with him. They did not speak for a long time. The city laid itself out like a project half-finished. "My brother should be here to laugh at all this," Stannis said at last, and it was not a warmth in his voice, but it was the shadow of one. "He would have made a mess," Ned said. "You would have cleaned it. I would have shaken my head. The city would have thanked us all and booed us all. It is the way of things." "Then let it thank and boo," Stannis said, "and let it eat." They stood until the window's light had stretched itself thin. When they turned away together, they did so without looking for omens. There was, in the Lannister camp, a hush that was not peace. Men oiled leather and took satisfaction in its squeak becoming a purr. Tywin and Kevin moved stones on a board meant for council, not game. Each stone, when set, implied scorched thatch miles away. A man in black armor waited to be named to ride a particular road and make it worse. Cersei wrote. Her hand was neat when she chose it. She chose it. "You send too many words, father," the letter said, without saying it. "Send men instead." She did not send the letter. She folded it and tucked it into the sleeve where once perfumed notes had lived. She would burn it later and smell the past and pretend not to. The hound walked the lines because he liked the company of horses. They were honest. They said when they wanted to trample you and did it. He leaned on a rail and listened to one breathe. The horse had a cough. He spat into the straw, thoughtful, and then went to find the boy who was supposed to have rubbed the animal down and had not done it right. He did not beat the boy. He told him what to do until the boy could do it, and then called him an idiot so that the boy would not become the sort of idiot who cried when praised. Joffrey cut air with a dagger until his wrist shook. He imagined that air was a northerner's neck. The air refused to die. He stopped when his hand hurt. He did not know how to stop when his mind did. He went to find the hound to insult him. He returned to his tent feeling safer and not knowing why. The cool of the September closed over them. Light fell in softened shafts from high windows, painting two colors on every cheek. Men breathed through cloves and old wax and the animal smell of cloaks that had come wet and were drying on backs. Benches had been set with more care than any bench deserved, the straight lines a comfort. If wood could be made to behave, perhaps blood might, for an hour. The High Septon's voice was a bell wrapped in cloth. The gods be praised for order, and for bread, and for the patience of men. He intoned the calling of a great council, not as a victory but as a necessity. The scroll with its pendant seals looked like a narrow banner in his hands, a little army of wax and ribbon marching down to a name. Ned stood where a man must stand when he has asked other men to be steady. Ice lay along his spine like a vow that had learned the weight of his bones. He watched faces the way a huntsman watches treeline. Not for deer, but for the absences that mean something has already bolted. Mace Tyrell had arrived with the quiet, practiced bustle of a man who fills rooms without appearing to push anyone out of them. Behind him, Loras wore restraint with the same skill he wore gilded steel. Within the first ranks of the Reachmen moved a shadow with a stick, a small old woman's figure whose eyes took in a room the way a seamstress takes in a dress, with needle, with purpose. Men made space without meaning to wherever Olenna Tyrell leaned her weight. Banners had come cautious and were not raised. A high tower on a folded field, red wine grapes peeking at a corner, pale suns that had not yet found the courage to flame. A bald lord of Old Town's lesser kin cleared his throat with a scholar's confidence. A knight with a half-withered hand bowed, of Duskendale. 2 storm lords handed their cloaks to pages and kept the thunder in their voices for later. Stannis Baratheon was a plank in all that water. He gave the gods their nod out of habit, not faith, and took his place to Ned's right as if the stone of the floor belonged to him by old mortgage. He did not sit. Few did. The moment could not bear too much weight yet. Outside, in the square, carts tipped their loaves at last into the hands of women with long arms and men with short tempers made short for once by gratitude. The smell of crust rose faintly in under the doors and steadied even those who did not notice it. A boy with flour on his sleeve slipped in at the back and stood on his stolen stool to see. The High Septon lifted both palms. Rings flashed. "Let it be witnessed," he said, "that the realm has been called to council for lawful purpose. Let it be said, for the comfort of widows and for the restraint of hot heads, that law will speak before iron does." His eyelids fluttered. Somewhere within all that cloth and stone there was a man who remembered his own name, and the sound of his father's bell on feast days, and the taste of a heel of bread when he had been a child and hungry. He looked at Ned with old-pitted hope. "My Lord Protector." Ned took one step forward and felt every eye draw a thread from him. He spoke without ornaments. "When the cloth is strong, it needs no lace. Robert Baratheon is dead." He let them hear the plainness. "By his will and seal, I hold the Red Keep as protector until lawful succession is declared. By line and law, his brother Stannis Baratheon is heir. I have sent the queen and her children from the city under guard and witness, not to harm them, not to hide them, but so that the council might sit without knives at its ankles. I have called you to eat bread and to speak under the gods' eyes without shouting. The baker bakes, the sailor sails, the soldier watches. We will keep the city whole while we decide what shape it will wear. Murmur like brush fire, contained by damp." An old man of House Merryweather blinked tears he would deny later and said too loudly, "Bread first," and got a slap of approval on the shoulder from a neighbor with fruit stitched into his cloak. A Dornish envoy, sober as the stripe on his cloak, folded his hands and did not smile. A Hightower cousin, all parchment, held up a packet. "Precedents from Old Town," he said to anyone who would listen. "On councils and claims. The seals are fresh." Pycelle nodded so vigorously his chain looked for a moment like it might strangle him to get free. "Old Town will serve," he wheezed. Stannis's jaw flexed and went still. "Read the king's will," he said. There was no pride there. There was only arithmetic. Ned unrolled the parchment he had written the night Robert's breath had moved wine. Wax winked where it had been broken and pressed again for those who needed symbols more than breath. He read the words evenly, protector, council, and when he came to rightful heir, he did not touch the word with any emphasis that might turn it to a weapon too soon. The iron in his voice was not an edge. It was a bar. When he was done, the ink on the moment dried with little sounds. A cough, a woman shifting on a bench, a man's heel giving up its nerve and settling. The High Septon nodded as if the gods had leaned in and whispered, "It is tolerable." A lord of the Crownlands, Giles Rosby, gray as damp grain, rose, coughed an apology and said, "No crowning in haste then, no boy on the chair with a lioness whispering. That is an improvement I can taste." His cough gobbled the end of it. "Let the council sit." Mace Tyrell's smile moved an inch. "Bread has come," he said generously. "Let law come as well, thick-sliced and shared fairly." He turned his head half an inch. That was enough to let every man see Loras's profile, calm and made of angles that were not all youth. Olenna Tyrell's stick made one sharp punctuation on the flagstones. "Men who keep their bellies quiet do not shout their foolishness," she murmured to no one, which made half the nearest men feel she had approved them and the other half worry what they had done to fail. "Go on, wolves. Show us how you mean to keep the city from slitting its own throat with its eager tongue." Stannis looked as if he would have preferred a table with pins in it to this river of mouths. He pressed one finger against the edge of the bench as if pressing wax and said, "The law of succession is not a feast day game." He nodded to the Old Town Maester's cousin, to Pycelle, to anyone who would add weight to what he had to say. "It is clear. It has been clear since Aegon. The king's sons inherit before his brothers. If the queen had borne the king's sons, the council would not be needed. She did not." The word hung not like a dropped thing, but like a thing that had risen. Men leaned as if they might catch it and tame it before it bit. Ned felt the old book of lineages heavy at his hip. John Arryn's ghost stood somewhere behind him with quill in hand. Murmuring seeds are strong with the dry satisfaction of a man whose small proof had become a kingdom's lever. "Proof," said a quiet voice, and it was not skeptical so much as dutiful. It belonged to a lord of Massey's Hook whose house kept ledgers like prayer books. Proof must be laid on a table before men of rank. Ned drew the book out with care, as if he plucked it from a shelf where boys' lives were stored. He let the leather lie open in his palm and turned to the pages where hand after hand had noted hair and eye and temper, flourishes beside the words that meant nothing unless you cared what lay under skin. He read 3 Baratheon marriages, all with black-brown heads begetting black-brown heads, until a man who had come smirking with a red beard found his mouth a little thinner. "The king has black hair," someone said uselessly, as if naming a color might keep the sea from coming in. "The queen's gold," said Stannis, flat. "No gold has come of their union. The queen's children are bastards of another man's make." A breath drew in and did not go out. Even men who had guessed did not like being forced to know. In the doorway of the September, where common folk had been permitted to stand beneath the eyes of 24 patient gold cloaks, a woman made a sound as if she had dropped a pot. Then, as ever, bread saved the moment. A page from the kitchens darted in with a tray of sliced loaves and salt and set them at the back for the watchers to take, and the watchers took, and chewing changed the shape of their faces from a crowd of little mouths into a row of eating beings. "Names," called a dry voice that had never liked perfume. It came from a knot of Dornishmen. Their leader had an iron ring pushed through one ear. "If you accuse, accuse clean. Whose bastards are they?" Ned had lived his life in oath and queasy mercy. There were moments when naming a thing in a crowded room felt like dropping a child from a tower and trusting air to learn how to be a net. He heard a weirwood stream somewhere it could not be and said, "Jaime Lannister's." It made a sound. It was not a groan or a cry. It was the sound a room makes when all its joints ease at once into new shape. Men had known. Now they had permission to have known. A Reach Lord crossed himself with 3 quick touches. A Stormlander laughed, once, and then caught his shoulder as if it hurt. Old Town's Maester cousin, Ed, and looked down, fingers already wanting to go seek a rubric in the vellum to label scandal. Pycelle dabbed at his lip with a trembling handkerchief. "Grievous," he managed. "Grievous, but, such matters, how delicate, how plain," Stannis said. "Such children have no claim. The queen, your queen, if you wish to call her such, has been exiled, not executed. No heads have been taken in halls. No cells have been lined with straw for princesses. The law has not bitten. It has only spoken. Now the council must name the heir we already know. The council must sit with all the realm's witness," Ned answered, because there were some lines he would not leap because he could. "We call, we hear, we affirm. The throne is not a stool to be snatched in a gap between prayers." Mace Tyrell's fingers smoothed imaginary crumbs from his tunic. "No one would wish to see a stool snatched," he said, agreeable. "We prefer a chair offered." He turned to Renly, though Renly had not yet made his entrance. An empty space made men turn cleverly toward air. It was a habit of court. The habit was rewarded. The doors at the western transept admitted a breeze with gardens on its back, and with it came Renly Baratheon, wearing green that had been chosen to make other men feel their own colors were poorly washed. Behind him came Reach peers who could spend a proverb in 3 different ways and still keep the coin, and between them came Olenna's stick, discreet as death and twice as sensible. Renly bowed to the gods and then to the room. He did not bow to Stannis. He did not fail to bow to Stannis either. He contrived the angle of his body so that a painter later could argue either tale. "Bread is in the square," he said to the hall before he addressed any one man. "The city will not need to eat its patience." He looked then at Stannis. "Brother, Lord Renly," Stannis said. Renly faced the High Septon as if he were asking his indulgence to speak in a pleasant corridor, not under the painted gaze of saints. "We have been given an empty chair," he said. "We must choose who sits without splitting it. Law speaks Stannis's name. Custom speaks speed. Prudence speaks bread. I propose this. The council sits as the law insists. In the interval before the last words are spoken, the city be kept whole by the protector and a regency comprised of men the realm trusts, one from each great region, to bind us to patience. When the council names, the regency dissolves like wax under noon, a murmur that was not discontent. Men liked committees when they were chosen to sit on them." Olenna's mouth flattened. She had known that was coming and would now permit it as if it had been her own suggestion. Stannis did not like it. Men could see that and did not mind. "The law does not need a choir to sing its tune," he said. "But if you must have a table to set your cups on while we wait for ink to dry, set it. It will not change the writing. The regency must not become a triangle turned to a spear," Ned said. "No one man will drive it. One from each quarter, and none to be seated who have blood in the quarrel that could make them tilt the table." "Then I shall not sit," Renly said with an unoffended smile. "I am blood. I will feed the city and keep my banners out of the alleys. Stannis will not sit, for he must not sit in two chairs at once even in rumor. The North will name. The Riverlands will name. The Vale has closed its doors. Let the Reach name in its stead, for it has opened its barns. Dorne will name. The Stormlands," he shrugged beautifully, "let them lend their men to the walls and their patience to the September. A high tower for the Reach, then?" murmured the Old Town cousin with an eagerness that stopped dead when Olenna's stick found the stone very gently. "Or," he amended, "a Tyrell who knows figures." "A Tyrell who knows figures," Olenna repeated dryly, "is a rare bird. Luckily this house raises rarities." She tilted her head toward a bearded man 2 rows back, whose belly was modest and whose hands were ink-stained. "Ser Haber has done the tallies of wine and grain without flattering the casks. He will do." "Dorne," said the Dornish envoy with the faintest of inclinations, "will send a man who can listen without sweating. It might have been a jest. It might have been a threat to outweight them all. The Riverlands will seat one who can count spears and cows both," came a thick voice from the middle ranks with Tully colors at a sleeve. Edmure was not there, but one of Hoster's bannermen, Goodbrook, had the river burr and the stubborn set of men who had learned the price of water. "The North," Ned said and stopped. His first thought had been Maester Luwin, who would not come. His second was Roderick Castle, who was beard and honor and good sense. He could be sent for. "The North will name Ser Roderick Castle," he said aloud. "He is not a lord, but he knows which way a beam must lie for a roof to stay up. The Vale," he spread his hands. He had written to Lisa until the inks in his sand were gone. "The Vale will be offered its seat until the doors open." Stannis's mouth flattened. He accepted the table like a man accepts a poultice that stinks and will work. "Then let us swear," he said, "by the gods or by our names." The High Septon made blessing of it, his voice moving like incense smoke into corners. Men swore to keep the city whole. They put their hands where they wished, on steel, on cloth, on air. A Reach Lord made a flippant gesture that died under his grandmother's stick. A Storm Lord swore too loudly to disguise how much he loathed swearing in a room with so much perfume. The Regency, if such it could be called, was named. Haber Tyrell bowed like a clerk. The Dornishman with the iron ring turned at once as if to tighten the promise to his ear. Goodbrook, it was Goodbrook after all. Looked stolidly pleased to be chosen for work that would mean counting more cows and coin in a place where men often counted only the length of one another's shadows. Ned felt, a little, the comfort of men who would not make speeches but would measure properly. "Then bread," Renly said, brightening the edges of the room like a door opened onto sun. "The barges keep coming." The city will believe in councils if councils keep it from needing to gnaw rope. Let us go outside and watch children fight over crusts. And when that is quiet, we can argue again without raising voices. It ended not with a clap, but with the sound of benches eased back without scraping. Men breathed as they rose. A lord tripped on a robe and turned it into a graceful turn because he had practiced that his whole life. The doors gave them back to the square, where bread and law met in the open. Bywater's men stood in 2 files, their helms low, their eyes up. The pigeons had learned very quickly that bells meant crumbs. The sky had thinned to a good pale, the sort of sky that seems to have been laundered by a careful hand. The city moved like an animal too sore to run and very glad to be stroked. Stannis did not smile. Ned did not look for a smile. He watched a woman tear a loaf and give the bigger half to the smaller child. He watched a boy slip a heel into the sleeve of his jacket for a mother who could not stand in line. He watched a man with a nasty face give his slice to a stray dog because the dog had looked at him honestly, and men sometimes find honesty more persuasive than hunger. Tomorrow, Stannis said, as if naming the weather, we will hear proofs and make the ink permanent. The lords of the West will not be here. They can read proclamations from a distance. Tomorrow, Ned agreed, and felt tomorrow take its place in his bones with the tiredness that is the only honest bedfellow of duty. The sea came in the dark, and with it a woman who had brought her own light. The red cloth shed rain as if the drops thought better of clinging. The great ruby at her throat pulsed, not bright, not theatrical. It seemed simply to prefer to be a small ember rather than a stone. Melisandre stepped onto the stone of Dragonstone as if it had been made at her request. Davos folded his arms in the rain. He had learned the trick of letting a man, or a woman, feel the weather without offering one's cloak. Some wanted to show they did not need warmth. You're expected, he said, which in Davos's mouth could mean many unflattering things if a man took the time to hear them. You will want the painted table, but you'll have the guest hall first. The maester keeps a fire there that does not smoke you out. The night is cold, she said, and the way she said it made the rain seem suddenly ordinary, as if it were a human habit instead of a sky's. She lifted her eyes to the black bulk of the fortress. The night has been cold for a long time. There are men on the mainland who do not know what it carries. Men on the mainland, Davos said, with the patient insolence of a smuggler who has met many men. Have problems enough you can see. Come inside. You'll catch catarrh. Up on the parapet, Maester Cresson watched the red mop slide toward his hall. He rubbed forefinger against thumb, a gesture of weighing, not of piety. The rain made his hair stick to his skull like a skullcap. He did not notice. He had buried men with less weather on their faces and more iron in their hands. He had a letter half-written to Stannis that said, in careful phrases, I do not like the smell of this, and also, do not let your hunger for right become an appetite for certainty. He would finish it or burn it, depending on the way the house felt when the Red Woman crossed its threshold. Below and at a safe distance, Sansa stood with Shireen under an arch where wind could snatch at their hems but not their faces. The Red Woman seemed to Sansa like one of the saints from a tapestry painted too bright, unkind to eyes grown used to stone. Shireen's fingers found the seam of Sansa's sleeve and worried at it. The girl did not know she did it. She is a priestess, Shireen whispered, as children whisper when their whisper is most easily heard, of the Lord of Light. He burns things. What things? Arya asked, stepping into their shadow, cat looped as a scabbard at her ankle. She wiped rain with the back of her wrist and left a child's cleanliness there. Things that don't need burning, Cresson said behind them, so gently that Shireen only started, not flinched. He had come down the stairs soundlessly. For an old man, that was part practice, part regret. My ladies, the guest hall is warmer, and the wind will grow teeth when the tide turns. Sansa let herself be turned by his kind hand. Arya hung back a half-breath, eyes on the Red Woman's ruby as if it were a small enemy that might pounce. The cat made its decision for her by shaking its head and splattering her with a furry rain. She laughed, and the laughter ran ahead of them into the hall and made the fire look like less of a stranger. Inside, Melisandre coughed a spray of salt into her palm and said a word that made no sense to ears not taught to it. She looked around and smiled as if she found the air hungry for her breath. "It is good," she said. "The stone remembers dragons. It will remember fire." Cresson inclined his head without liking. "We remember many things here," he said. "Tea, for instance." He poured cups. He did it himself because the ritual of pouring steadied men better than the steadying tea did. He handed one to Sansa and one to Shireen and one to Melisandre, who took it like a queen accepting a tribute and then drank it like a patient who has agreed to swallow medicine to humor a doctor. Arya sniffed her cup and pretended to drink and then set it down because lying is a skill and she had not decided whether to learn it yet. "Do you burn cats?" she asked, guileless to the bone and pleased to be. Melisandre laughed, light and learned. No, the sound was not unpleasant. Cats know more about the night than we do. It is to people we must teach things, and they do not like to learn. "Do you teach with fire?" Sansa asked, and then wanted to put the question back in her own mouth. The Red Woman's eyes landed on her as if she were a page to be turned. "Sometimes," she said. "Sometimes a man needs to be warmed to remember that breath means life. Sometimes a man needs to be burned to remember that life means more than breath." She looked to Cresson as if to invite a dispute. Cresson did not give her one. He had learned to husband his strength. When Melisandre had been shown to a set of rooms that had once held a summer islander with bracelets up both arms and a laugh like a bell, the hall breathed again. Davos sat on a bench and stretched his legs as if he were measuring them for a grave. "I don't like the way she looks at the dark," he said, "as if it is something she can fold up and put away." "I don't like the way she looks at my lord's duty," Cresson said, and touched the letter with a passer's caress, as if it were a piece she could move with a fingertip on a table. "Some pieces are men. Some are children." He glanced at the girls. "Some are stones that look like pieces and are actually walls." Shireen set her pebble board on the bench between them, with its checker of little cups carved into bleached driftwood. "I'll beat you at fox and hens," she said to Davos gravely, and in that announcement there was a salvation of a kind. Beric listened to the water, trying to remember how to work the wheel. The trident had been taught the song of the mill by generations of patient hands. Now fire had given it another verse, crackling and guttering. His horse took the ash under its hooves with the same care he took in swallowing his anger. "There's a widow," said his sergeant, "and 3 bairns in the ditch by the thorn. They think they're foxes. They are not. There's a cart axle cracked. The man's using his last curse to try to mend it with a prayer. Take the wheel off with him and carry it between you," Beric said. "Give him your spare pin. Teach the widow to breathe through her nose. Men die screaming and never learn that trick." He moved a hand. The lightning banner moved with him, not catching the settling ash. "The mountain's dogs will come along this lane at moonrise. We'll leave them wine and a well to piss in that looks like water, and then we'll make their horses shy." He did not grin. When a man has been told to keep the peace, he must learn to use humiliation as a blade. They lay like molehills until night had a purplish edge. A rider came ahead of the rest, too sure of himself to imagine stones that had learned to roll. He swore when his mount went to its knees at Beric's line, and his comrades laughed until their own beasts tried to rear at the smell of the nettles packed under the straw. Men curse less eloquently in nettles. The riders hacked and slipped, and one fell and broke nothing but pride. Beric's men took no lives. They took bridles. They took a purse with a lion sewn cleverly to look like a lily. They took a map that named a widow's barley by a line drawn without guilt. The map made the sergeant's jaw jump. Beric shredded it and fed it to the river piece by piece, the paper darkening to truth as it sank. "They'll make another," the sergeant said. "And we'll teach the river to eat again," Beric said. "The piece is hungry. We feed it with their annoyance." He passed a wineskin back to the men, and each took a swallow and sent it without ceremony to the next hand. When men get too careful with who drinks first, trouble begins. At dawn they passed a small shrine, a stone with a notch and a bit of ribbon that might have been a prayer. Beric reached down and tightened the ribbon. It was not a prayer, not in any tongue a priest would bless. But it told the stone, the ditch, the road, that someone had seen them. That is often enough to keep the next man from striking without thinking. Sallador-san wore blue and green that made the river look underdressed. He smiled as if he were already being paid twice. Once in coin and once in being allowed to be himself. "My Lord Hand," he sang out, making the title into a wine one could smell from the quay. "King's Landing has been nothing and everything without me for too long. It has been everything it should be and nothing it cannot afford," Davos said, which made Sallador grin wider. Few things pleased him more than Davos's refusal to flatter him even when coin and craft demanded someone flat. Ned nodded to both men and let the salt sting him. He had missed it, and he had not known that until it was back on his tongue. The caravel behind Sallador wore carvings that would have scandalized a sept and educated a boy. A mermaid with a smile that was all mischief and fish looked as if she would overbalance the bow. A little girl in a flower-dusted dress touched the tail and squealed, half afraid, half ecstatic. Her mother dragged her back and then, because the day had been kinder than most, laughed and let her go again. "Your purse?" Ned told Sallador, handing a leather bag to a quartermaster who looked as if he had been born with a slate under his arm. "We do not haggle. We do not leave sailors waiting on stone to be paid in flattery. We do not allow them to pick the city clean. We do not allow the city to pick them clean. We ask them to keep their fists to themselves, and we require the same of our own men unless the other fellow is the first fool." "Hear him," Sallador said to the quartermaster grandly. "The hand is a poem of sense." He bowed elaborately to Ned. "Some men would cheat to have me, and yet you pay, and in paying you make me wish to cheat no one." "That will be a first," Davos murmured. "That will be a season," Sallador corrected. "All things change with the wind." He glanced up the hill to where the September sat like a patient bride. "You are making a council." "I have attended councils. On decks where the only vote that mattered was the seas. They are tiring. You have my sympathy." "I have your ships," Ned said. "Your sympathy is a secondary benefit." Bywater's handshake felt like stone with a pulse. "The watch thanks you, Sir Davos," he said, "because men who mean to work together learn one another's names. And you, Master Pirate." "Privateer," Sallador said gravely. "I am a private man, and my cheer is public. You will like me less by winter." He tipped 2 fingers to his brow at the line of fishwives who had come down to gawk. "Ladies, if your husbands have promised you more fish now that the ships are in, they have lied. But there will be bread." "A man who tells the truth by accident," Davos said. "Mark the day." By the time Ned climbed again toward the Hand's tower, a smell of stew had spread down slope like a kind fog. Men do not riot with spoons in their hands. He passed a corner where 2 gold cloaks were teaching a boy how to turn a spear, but in a crowd so that it did not crack skulls, only ribs. He approved. The boy's eyes shone. He had thought himself chosen for an important job, and he had been, if not the kind he would have boasted of in a tavern. In his solar, he found a message from Old Town with new wax and cool patience, and one from White Harbor offering numbers that rhymed pleasantly with his own, and one from the Vale that was a silence wrapped in ribbon. He sat and wrote to Riverrun again, and to Roderick Come, and to Winterfell with a line for Bran that did not nag and for Rickon that did not fail to sound like a father's hand patting a head. He sealed each with the dire wolf and listened to the city breathing under his window. It was breathing. That was a victory. Jaime Lannister wore himself as if he were a joke he told when the night called for laughter and men's hands itched. His cloak could have made some lord's daughter swoon, white enough to shame linen, but it had a faint smear of something on its edge that no wash could lift. He liked it that way. He liked men to see him as both impossible and already a little stained. "Riverrun will be stubborn," Kevin said, falling in at his side like a good conscience. He had the kind of face that fooled men into thinking they might win an argument. "The boy Edmure thinks well of himself when he's on a horse, and the old man Hoster thinks well of his river. I think well of myself everywhere," Jaime said. He turned his head and saw Cersei riding, veil like a drawn curtain across a window that had decided it did not belong to the street. Joffrey rode a step past her knee as if he were showing the road to itself. The boy's shoulders were rigid with pride and with the work of not letting his mare do what she wished. "If your jaw tightens any further, it will break," Jaime called lightly. "Smile for the peasants. They like their princes to look as if they void gold." Joffrey's mouth made a shape it thought might be better than a scowl. The hound's horse twitched an ear, as if to flick off a fly that had been insulted. Cersei did not waste a glance. "They have not killed him," she said to Tywin later in the pavilion, without preface or a title. "Stark. He thinks this mercy makes him a king." Tywin ate a piece of bread with little butter and less pleasure and said, "He thinks mercy can make him something else." He did not bother with what. The map on the table lay composed, rivers like neat blue lines that a boy could have traced with a dry finger. He moved a stone. It kissed the vellum. "We will go around Riverrun if we must. We will make a wheel and roll over their winter stores. When men are cold, they welcome law, even Stark's law. And if they do not?" Cersei asked, and it might have been a taunt and it might have been a daughter's request for assurance. "Then they will be made to act like men instead of cats," Tywin said, and the calm in his voice made the nearby lamp seem too bright. "We will not assault the city until it is ready to be The second day tasted chalky. Men came with their mouths lined for argument and found proofs instead. A book with too many names not to be believed. Statements given in quiet by people who had never spoken to a high septon in their lives. Midwives with hands that could tell a father's blood by the temper of an infant's cry. Varner, the keeper of the royal stables, who had once remarked where he should not have that the king's bastards had his legs. None of them spoke in the hall. Their words came on vellum, sealed and countersealed, their marks awkward and the more trustworthy for it. Varys had brought them, smiling as if he had done nothing. Barristan Selmy stood where a man should stand who has nothing to sell. He told no tales of bedchambers. He did not speak any name that would make a woman blush. He said only, "I have served 3 kings. I have seen temptation dressed as mercy and mercy dressed as sin. I have seen kings put their seed where they should not and known the ruin that followed before the child learned to walk. I do not know what happened behind certain doors. I know what happens to a realm that permits a lie to sit on the chair where the truth should be. The room liked him for that. It is dangerous to be liked in a room like that. It can make men careless with their caution." But Barristan had been followed by caution like a dog for so long that even men who wished to be faithless in her eyes did, skittering down lists faster than any clerk. "Men who will not riot if they can shake their heads at a number," she said under her breath to a Tyrell retainer with ears still good, "are men who will riot if you move their number to the line under it. Remember that." The Dornish envoy spoke once to remind the hall that the Martells had memory. "We have not forgotten Elia," he said, and silence greeted her name so thoroughly that one could hear the peculiar noise made by a grain cart wheel outside when it hit a gap in the paving stones. "We have not forgotten what happens when lions are permitted to decide what vengeance should look like. Speak your names, Northerners. Put your proofs in our hands as if they were hot metal and we were the smiths." The High Septon made notes with the care of a man who had spent half his life writing and the other half praying to be spared ink-stained fingers. "It is enough," he said at last. "It is enough for a council to continue. It is enough for the law to be called by its name and not by a nickname. It is enough to read 3 times before we forget that it is more than words." Stannis's face did not change. He could have been looking at a wall that had finally admitted it was a wall. Ned felt a sliver of something that could be called relief, or perhaps only the easing of one tooth in a closed mouth. He put his hand on the parchment that told where the grain lay. It was the other page that mattered, always. Men use kingships. They live on bread. "Tomorrow we name," the High Septon said. "Tonight we sleep. Tonight," Varys murmured, "we post more men at the river gate." He smiled when Ned glanced at him. "Whispers are louder when the city is quiet. It makes my work easy. There is a man in the Street of Sisters who said last night that his brother had heard a cousin swear that the Queen would be back on the morrow with 10,000 lions." Bywater reported at Ned's shoulder, practical as a hammer. "I had the cousin fetched. He has no brother. He likes to have beer before noon. I have given him a job stacking benches in the September, so he can say something true when he drinks. Pay him, Ned said. Men like him are the mortar between stones. He rubbed 2 fingers together, feeling the grit, the thought of it. Double the watch at Mager's. Littlefinger sits more comfortably in silence than I like. He is a man who likes to make gaps sound like his voice. Do we leave him there? Bywater asked. He did not ask from sentiment. For now, Ned said. If the world is to do a thing tomorrow morning, let us not complicate it tonight by breaking a toy. There will be time to learn how many hands he has shaken and how much he washed them afterward. When the hall emptied, an echo remained, like cooling iron. Men's footsteps had worn something into the stone that could not be seen. The incense had sunk into the cloth and would be carried out on shoulders to beds. In the square, the last of the bread was still being sliced thin enough to be shared. A girl with an apron smacked a boy's hand away from a heel not his and then, after a heartbeat, gave him 2 smaller ones because she had been that hand once. Ned walked up to the godswood because indoors had begun to feel like too many tongues. The little pool looked up at him with its counterfeit sky. He knelt because he could not unlearn kneeling. He did not pray. He told the water a list, the names of men who had found the day decent and of those who had failed it. He added his own to the ladder. He rose. When he reached his solar, there was a letter on the table with black wax and scentless paper. He broke it and read the neat, angry hand. Tywin Lannister did not waste ink. Your council will seat a thief and call him honest. It said, without salutation, without farewell. Your mercy is a knife turned in your own belly. Send my daughter home and I will speak to you in a room. Keep her west of your wall and I will speak from a distance. Do not mistake caution for patience. Ned folded it the way he would a bandage. He did not answer it that night. Tomorrow would be a day for many words. Tonight he would have a cup that was mostly water and sleep as one sleeps in a saddle. The song was one Sansa had thought she had forgotten. The one that comes from throats too dry, sung to tiny ones who do not know what thirst is. She did not sing it prettily. She sang it the way the song had been made, like a woman making a blanket out of rags and warmth out of breath. Shireen found the refrain after the second turn and made it solid. Arya did not sing. She cleaned her blade with the round seriousness that children bring to the few grown acts they are allowed to own. Cressen's quill rested on his thumbnail as if it were a bird that might take flight any moment. He watched them and understood that nothing he wrote could weigh more than that sound. He had a vial in a drawer that had seemed, for a moment in the rain, to know his fingers by name. He closed the drawer without touching it. There would be a different day for heroics. This one had girls breathing on it, and men at sea, and a city waiting for bread to prove more binding than blood for one more night. Melisandre was not in the doorway, and yet her shape found a place on the stone, a flicker made by a rolling log, a trick of a flame. Sansa saw it and then pretended she had not. Arya did not see it. She saw the sharpness of her needle and the safe round of her sister's knees. Shireen saw it and set her pebble game aside. One pebble balanced between finger and thumb, a small weight that could tip either way. Again? She asked Sansa, not needing it and needing it. Again, Sansa said, and the second time her voice did not break on the high note. It did not sweeten either. It held. The city had learned, in these days, how to walk softly in its own corridors. Even hawkers whispered. The sea did the larger talking for them, moving the stink of fish into alleys too high to welcome it and stealing it back at the turn of the tide. The bells did not ring. They would ring later, and they knew it. Ned washed with water cold enough to make breath count itself. He combed hair that would have preferred the wind. He put on a cloak that no man would remember when he stood beside a man whose cloak had made many forget themselves for less reason. He tightened ice on his back and thought of how many rooms he had walked through with a different weight. He went down. Bywater stood at the foot of the tower with a face that might crack if he smiled. He did not. He had men set 2 by 2 where crowds might thicken and men might pretend to be one another. He had a boy posted where boys come and go and bring a city's busiest truths. Inside the September, the benches had learned who would sit on them and had accepted it. Men took their places with less coughing and more averted eyes. The book lay open again, but no one looked at it now as if it were a promise. It had become a tool, and tools comfort fewer hearts than promises do. The High Septon lifted both hands, and when he did, a little cloud of motes rose with him and then settled again. "In the names of the 7 who are one," he said, a man who had been trained to be sonorous and felt now the smallness of his voice under a vault too large for any man's breath. "And with the witness of the realm gathered, we seat our great council and we name the lawful successor of Robert Baratheon, king of the Undulls and the Roiner and the First Men." He turned his head to each of the appointed regents and then to the rows beyond, as if to borrow their voices for his single sentence. "By blood and by law, Stannis of House Baratheon is named." It passed through the hall like a wind that did not topple anything. Men had known it for a day and a half, had known it since a book had been opened, had known it since a rumor with lion's paws had first set one foot into their kitchens. Knowing and hearing are different labors. One does the work of the mind. One forces the hand to follow. Stannis did not kneel. He did not smile. He did not look like a man suddenly transformed into a creature of heraldry. He stood as he had stood and held the air in his chest as if it might try to leave without permission. The High Septon took a crown that had been polished until it pretended to gold and brought it to him like a tool offered in a smithy. Stannis put his hand to it and then did a surprising thing. He looked at Ned. It was not a request. It was not a question. It was a line cast, a weight on the end of it. Ned inclined his head. Once, exactly as low as a man lowers his head to a friend who has asked him to remember something that matters. The High Septon set the crown where crowns go. Men looked. Nothing in the stone changed. That is not how stone works. Men moved a fraction of an inch toward their next breath. Renly's face maintained its handsomeness. He clapped once, quietly, and those of the Reach who had learned to follow social sounds followed it without rancor. Bread had taught them what to do when the law named another. Olenna's stick tapped once. She had served her own house more times than most men had served any notion and knew how to acknowledge a thing without surrendering one iota of advantage. The Dornish envoy inclined his head and did not smile. His face said, "We remember this as we remember other things, and we will weigh it like any other weight." Bells rang then, at last. They did not riot in their ringing. They rang as if they were counting steps for a procession that would never set foot on their stair but would walk past the base and take its nitpicking with it. In the square, women cried and laughed and told children to wipe their noses. A man threw his cap and looked immediately for where it had fallen, because he had done that once and lost it and had only one cap. Within, Stannis Baratheon now with a crown, turned to the assembled and said the fewest words possible. "I will keep the law," he said. "You will keep the peace. Bread will be counted daily. A levy will be called according to custom. I will hear the Riverlands before I judge the West. I will hear the North before I ask it to come. I will pay debts. I will not sell girls to purchase banners or boys to purchase ships. The Queen will be summoned to speak for herself before the council 6 weeks hence. If Lord Tywin Lannister wishes to speak sooner, he may come. If he wishes to burn towns to insult the law into answering him, he will find that law has teeth." The hall liked the teeth. Men always do when they are promised they belong to someone else. Ned watched faces as they learned the shape of having a king who would not wink at them. It would be a comfort to some. It would be a wound to others. He felt both truths like a man feels rain on his hair and sun on his cheek at the same time when a cloud breaks and both fall on him in a square. After, in the side chamber with its smaller lamps and its closeness that made voices seem like a conspiracy even when they were not, Stannis sat because men would have resented it if he had not. He ran one finger over the crown's inner rim, as if to learn where it would bite if he wore it long enough. "We will post riders to the Riverlands and the West," he said. "I will not be called king by men who have not heard me speak. Ned, Lord Protector, no. Hand, if you will have the badge." Ned felt the weight of the little metal hand in memory. He had not thought to put it back on. He put it back on. The pin felt foolish in the face of ice. "I will have it," he said. "Then you will have it," Stannis returned, which was a jest in Stannis's tongue. The Regency dissolves at noon. It has done its work. The accounts remain public. He looked at Renly. You will not like my face at your councils. I will like your face in the ledger, Renly said cheerfully. I will bring more bread than you ask for, so that when you ask for barley I can give you wheat and be thought generous. Do not be thought generous, Stannis said. Be thought reliable. He waved a hand at Varys. Find me the men in the city who can count something other than coins. They will be paid to count men and grain and spearheads. Find me the thieves who are not cowards. They will be shown what happens when the law is a wall and not a door. Varys's smile went thin and then returned to its original thickness. The city hums, Your Grace, he said. We have tuned one string. There are 6 more at least. Then tune, Stannis said. And if the string breaks, replace it. The door bumped. Bywater put his head in without apology and said, A man weeping in the square says he was paid to set fires tonight. He cannot set them now because his hand shakes. He would like to sell us the name of the man who paid him. He would also like bread. I told him I only grant one wish at a time. Grant both, Ned said. But bread first. Name first, Stannis countered. Bread first, Ned repeated, and Stannis, after a moment, let the corner of his mouth imagine a smile and die of shame. King's Landing held its breath again, but not in fear. It was the breath a woman takes before a last seam. It was the breath a smith takes before the last blow that will seat a rivet. The air smelled of cooked grain and wet wool and of the sea being patient. The dogs did not bark in chorus. They barked singly every now and then, at the sort of thing dogs bark at because they must show they are doing a job no one pays them for. Ned walked the spine of the keep and felt the bones of it under him. Barristan walked at his shoulder, a white shadow that had learned the shape of walls better than any builder alive. Bywater's reports came like beads handed by a careful child who had learned to count. For claims of paid arson, 5 names, 3 lies, 1 man who had cried because he was not allowed to be brave for the wrong thing. In the Tower of the Hand, Littlefinger sat on his bench and made a coin walk along his knuckles as if it had learned to do it on its own. He looked up when Ned entered and smiled with a tidy honesty he did not feel. Congratulations, he said. You have made a king and not a riot. It is not often a man does both in one day. Will you let me out before the rats develop an affection for me? In time, Ned said. When I cannot use you to make the city quieter by being in a cell. You will find, my Lord Hand, Peter said, that I am not much quieter in a cell than out of one. At least when I am out, I give you something to talk about besides rats. He tilted the coin. It winked and hid. It is clever of you to have become the clever man's bore. Ned did not rise. He had learned that men like Peter require air to burn. If you do not fan them, they can be smothered by their own sparks. Where do you keep the books you do not show men you plan to cheat? He asked bluntly. In the head of a girl in the street of silk who thinks I am her father, Littlefinger said without missing a beat. Or perhaps under the 4th flagstone of your solar. Or perhaps in a box in the river. Let me out and I will show you where. You may put me back under a lock when I have done. I am used to being valuable and despised. You will show me because you know that if you do not, I will find them anyway and tell the city the way your numbers lie, Ned said. And men hate a liar who wastes their time almost as much as they hate one who steals their coin. He turned on his heel. Leave him, he told the guard, and bring him a heel of bread. A heel? Littlefinger called after him, amused. So you know me. Outside, Varys waited with a face like a polite hand. Your Grace Hand? He corrected, fluttering his fingers as if brushing flour from them. Ser Janos Slint would like to be ignominiously restored to something at a gate far away. He says Rosby has a fine gate. He has heard one can be called a lord there while napping. Send him to Rosby with a token of the law's indifference, Ned said. And warn Rosby that when men start to count their days instead of their duties, they should be invited to count ships in the harbor. That keeps the sums honest. Honesty, Varys murmured. We are in a new city entirely. In a city that remembers what it smells like when it has been lied to too long, Ned corrected. He put his hand to the stone again, the way one does when one is learning a house and hopes to live in it long enough to forget how much work it had been at the beginning. Bells did not ring again that night. Rain did not come. Out beyond the Rosby Road, torches burned where lions watched, and in the riverlands a man with a banner that flashed when the lightning came kept men from burning a widow's barley. On an island of black stone a girl with a scar on her face learned a new verse to a northern song, and liked the way it sat in her mouth. On a ship in the bay a Licini counted coins and then put 2 back in the purse because he had promised a boy a sweet the next day. In a cell under a tower, a clever man calculated and ate bread too hard for his teeth and told his stomach that it was like love. The city slept mostly. When it woke with the sort of headache that comes from tears and not wine. Men cared for that headache more. They had work. They did it. The law had said a word and kept from biting anyone's throat while it said it. That is not a miracle. But it is not nothing. And morning slid along the river, leavened by the sound of gulls and by a thin, surprised him from a woman in the Street of Seeds who had not thought the gods listened to her voice any longer and now suspected they had simply been letting her finish.